Did you know that 35% of fuel economy can be attributed to your driving habits? Use the Scan Gauge KR to maximize your driving efficiency. The Scan Gauge KR has built-in and programmable digital gauges that allow you to read instant fuel mileage, average fuel economy, and dozens more gauges as you drive. Get to know your truck and learn how you can improve your fuel costs and keep your money in your pocket where it belongs. Drive smarter and master the journey. Get yours today at letstruck.com or call our Tribe Care team at 855-800-FUEL. That's 855-800-3835.
Your money, your taxes, your truck, and your road to success in the trucking industry. This is Trucking Business and Beyond, the show that puts the money where it belongs, back in your pocket.
Good morning, you beautiful bunch of fuckers, and welcome to my world. I'm your host, Kevin Rutherford. It is Friday. It's finally Friday this week. October 25th, we are here live. It's time for trucking technology and efficiency and a Friday free-for-all. Looks like I've got Joel here. I understand Alex should be joining us, and I haven't heard from Henry yet. Let's bring Joel in. Joel, this Friday show for me is kind of like herding cats.
Yeah, no, I get it. I completely get it.
But I talked about this the other day. Almost all of my shows are like this now, other than Wednesday's the only day I don't have co-host now. Wednesdays, and right now on Wednesdays, I'm booked with guests till January. But on all the other days, I have co-hosts. But I talked about this. The interesting thing about my co-hosts, they're not radio people. They're out doing what they do every day. That's why they bring so much credibility to the show. It's why you bring so much credibility. If you're not here, it's because you're out working on what we talk about here, right?
Exactly, and you know, this is a good thing. It shouldn't be looked at as a bad thing for
Absolutely.
sure. You know, we're out here in the real world, and sometimes we have to do what we've got to do, whether we like it or not. And you know, it's just it's pure grassroots, right? This is the real deal for sure.
It's the real thing. It's current. It's up to date. Everybody that comes on this show that brings, you know, value to the show, it's very, very current, and it's always ongoing, which is what I absolutely love. So, you know, the schedule, no big deal. It's a little unusual, but I actually like it, and I think it works really well. So, I sounded like you were having an interesting week last week.
I've got so much stuff going on.
I'm not even really sure
where to begin.
Yeah.
I had discussions with the folks over at International Navistar. Kind of an ongoing discussion. They've asked me to look at their S13 platform and give me my thoughts on it. And so I've had it out. I've run it around a little bit. It has a lot of potential. I think the engine is very good. I think the combustion efficiency on the engine is probably second to none right at the moment.
Wow.
But combustion efficiency and operational efficiency are two different things.
Right.
And I think they need a little more work in the driveline department to refine things. There were certain things that I noticed when I was out running it around, problems that we had solved several years back on the Volvo side of things. And you know, we had some discussions about that, and probably will continue to have a few discussions in that regard, you know, as we move forward. In that same vein, I got to see some stuff on the new Cummins platform, close up and personal. They are going to have a very, very respectable engine as well. Now that it's kind of Volvoized. You know what I find is so funny on this is, for years I have talked about specific things in engine architecture to me that were just deal breakers. And I caught so much shit for that from so many people.
I know.
Oh, you're just a Volvo hack and it's bullshit and it doesn't mean anything. And for years I caught shit on that. And what do? They Volvolize their engine.
Did you hear
I get
Tuesday's?
the biggest kick out of that.
Did you hear Tuesday's show?
I heard a little bit of it when he started talking about it. I was just I have to admit I was smiling and giggling because I thought this is a Volvo. You know what I mean?
I was too.
And to see it firsthand the way I got to see it.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. I have not liked the Cummins platform since they introduced the X15 or the ISX. I just haven't liked it. I've looked at it.
I never liked the ISX from the very prior to emissions. Even there was a non-emission ISX,
right.
And I didn't even like it then. It wasn't the emissions. They did the same thing on emissions everybody else did, so it wasn't like they were doing anything weird. So there was nothing to dislike about that. My first, and this is back when I really didn't understand the engine architecture, so I wasn't even really referring to that. My problem with it was, why is it so damn complicated?
You're right. It was extremely complicated. A lot of stuff that you just scratch your head and go, what in the hell are they thinking? But you know, it's what it is, I guess. And I've never cared for that platform. And I benchmark against fleets that run those engines.
Of course.
And I mean, let's just admit they're problematic. They were in fleet operations. Some of the shit that people that run them engines have to go through, I am just shocked.
Well,
I look at that and I'm like, wow, really? You're still having to do this or do that on a regular basis? And
my show is
crazy.
Is like a history of this. You know, one of the things I'd like to do, and I'm actually playing around with some of this in the background, as much as I complain about AI and I think it's going to kill us all and take over the world, it's here. And I can't change that, so I'm going to take advantage of it. It is a very powerful technology. There's a lot of cool things you can do with it.
Sure.
I'm actually trying. I'm trying right now. I think I'm going to need Aaron's help. But I found a process where I can build bots that would do all of my morning research for me and summarize it for me and put it into bullet points, which I usually spend about 2 hours on that. And I've got it down to and most of that 2 hours is not reading. It's searching for the things I want to read. I have to scroll about 500 headlines to find the stuff that I'm looking for. And that's what once I find an article, it takes me a couple minutes to go through it, figure out, is this something I want to talk about? What, how am I going to relate this to what we're doing? The time is all in the setup and the searching. And these bots, if I get them working right, I'm getting closer, do it in seconds. It's a pretty incredible technology. And then what I can do with that information using AI. But the other thing I'd like to do is, since we have done our app, we have all of our recorded shows. I never used to do that when I was on Sirius XM because that wasn't my content. My contract basically said once I said it, it was on their platform, it was their content now. So I really never recorded it because there wasn't a ton I could do with it. But now we can. We've been recording for all these years now. I'd love to run all of that audio through AI. And here's a topic. Find all of the mentions of the ISX and the X15. Because I can promise you, if we search that, it's not going to look good. I don't get a ton of people calling and complimenting the engine. I would know that if I did. I get a lot of problems. And I go back to about 2006 when we first started to realize they had cam issues. And that went on for, they said, oh, we got a bad batch of cams. Well, okay, that should be over quick then. 8 years later, we were still talking about bad cams. And then we went through the fuel pump, the ceramic plungers coming apart and taking engines out with them. We went through their fuel filters clogging. And every time I talk about this to somebody who loves the platform, they always just kind of poo-poo it. Oh, well, yeah, but they fixed that.
Right.
I know they
Right.
fixed it, but there's something else. It always seems like there's something else. So now I am hopeful. The first thing Eric said is they've simplified a lot of things. That caught my attention. That's what that engine needed. It needed to be simplified.
You're right, and it was overly complex from the beginning. And I know we're going to have Cummins people call up. Oh, that's bullshit. It was. It just was.
Right.
When you compare it to everything else that was out there, it was complicated. It was a complicated engine. And I know people love to bust on the Volvo. It takes special tools. It's very simple compared to an ISX.
Correct.
Very, very simple.
Correct.
And what I love about this, though, is free markets and competition. Look what happened here.
Yes, exactly.
You've got essentially what Americans consider a foreign brand that had this weird engine architecture that nobody kind of understood over here. Globally, that is the world's best-selling 13-liter engine, bar none. Even the Detroit, it sold more engines than the 60 series.
When you go worldwide, right?
Yes, worldwide, correct. And here's what competition done. It had forced Cummins to make a move.
Correct.
They would have sat on that ISX or X15 the way it was because they didn't have to move. Now they had to move. The competition was forcing them, and that's great for everybody involved. And I'll be the first one to tell you right now, this is going to be a goddamn good engine for them.
Excellent.
Because I've seen what they've done. And I know nobody's going to like to hear this, but it's very, very reminiscent of what Volvo's done, years ago. It's like they just finally caught up. This is going to be good for them.
When Eric was talking about it, and he was explaining, the things that they changed, and he said they moved this pin up in the piston. And I'm like, oh, now I understand what that means.
Right? Lengthened the rod. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I know what that means. How funny. Yeah.
Oh my God. All the things I've been talking about and took so much heat on when I talked about that wrist pin location and the pin. Oh, that's you extra thousandths of an inch doesn't mean anything. And I've bullshitted.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
It absolutely does. So it's great to see because they are going to have an excellent engine with the compression ratio they're running. If you just look at combustion efficiency, this may even surpass the S13. I think it's going to be very, very good for them.
And that's good for us.
And I love to see that. And I'm not a Cummins guy by no means. But this one is going to be good for them. One thing I think people need to understand when we talk about fuel agnostic, or when Cummins does, it's not that you can have a diesel powered X15 and flip a switch and put gasoline.
No, absolutely
you
not.
buy it as a gasoline engine or as a diesel or as a hydrogen. They're running all those fuels in the same platform, but the platform that you buy is stuck to that particular fuel.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. This isn't some multi-fuel
I run into a conversation where somebody thought they could either put gas or diesel in it depending on which one was less expensive, and it doesn't work that way.
No, this is not a multi-fuel engine, but it is a multi-fuel platform.
Right.
That would be a better
platform.
way of
yes, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Yes, the platform is multi-fuel. The engine specifically that you have is not. So that is also important to understand. But not being a Cummins guy, this one's going to be a good one for them. It's going to put some heat on Volvo, no doubt, to make their truck a little better. Same thing with Detroit. It's going to put some heat on them, and this is going to raise the game. And who's going to benefit? Every one of us.
All of us. And here's what's really exciting about what's just happened in the last year. It's not just that we have another engine to choose from. That's not what this is about. What we have now is we have another two more truck manufacturers that are now viable. Had somebody called me 2 years ago and wanted help speccing a pack car product or an international, I kind of pushed back on them. Look, I get it. I understand why you like the truck, but to me, the drive line is the most important factor here. So much so that I've never been a fan of Freightliners. Other than the FLD, I thought our cabs had issues. They were just awful in a lot of ways. But I stuck with Freightliner because of the driveline that was available. It was what I liked. It was what I understood,
Yes.
and it worked well for me.
Yep.
And when I couldn't
Yep.
get a Detroit in a Volvo anymore, I switched for that. That was an important
Yes.
factor for me. So now the fact
Yes.
it's not that we have 2 new engines, we have 2 more trucks we can now spec very efficiently. That's exciting.
So let me caution you a little bit here. So the engine, I have no doubt, is going to be a home run for Cummins. Just looking at that, knowing what I think I know and understand to be true, this is going to be a good one for them. Now, what they don't have is the rest of it. They don't have the transmission. They are not comfortable with the rear axle ratios that need to be run with that engine yet. Now, I'm assuming that stuff will come in time as they learn more about the capabilities of what this thing's going to be able to do. Right now, my understanding is they're going to have a package available that's going to be a 205 direct drive.
Okay.
Now, we hear 205 and we're like, oh, wow, that's great.
But it's direct.
Direct drive 205,
Yeah.
it's kind of like a 247 overdrive. It's starting to move in the right direction. I have a feeling very quickly they will probably offer a 195 direct, and then they'll probably offer a 216 over, like Volvo and International. That's my gut feeling. I have no inside information that that's going to happen, but it would make sense to me based on the architecture of the engine.
You know what's confusing to me?
Mm-hmm.
You and I, and I'll put Bruce in here because Bruce has been doing the same thing ever since. We go back to the 90s when we were focused on driveline. Gearing. The engine was what it was.
Mm-hmm.
The gearing is where you could make a difference. You had different transmissions you could choose. You could then change differentials. You could change tire size. We've had lots of options in the driveline forever, but our problem has always been all 3 of us in the mid-90s could have said, why won't you build us this transmission and these differentials? They didn't exist. Everything we did with driveline seemed like a compromise. And we see
so there were,
now. Go ahead.
Go ahead. There were a few things here to touch on in the mid 90s, because I was really playing with this stuff hard back then. And one of the issues was we simply didn't have the rear axle ratios that we needed. They just weren't available.
Right.
And we were still really hung up in the idea of the manual transmission is much better than the automatic. And anytime you downspeed a diesel engine, you're going to do more shifting.
Yep.
And with a manual, we were always taught that get it in top gear and keep it there.
Yep.
And that was sort of how we judged the performance of an engine, by how long it would hold top gear. Now, we've done that because the drivers didn't like to shift. As much as we love to brag about our 18 speeds and yada, yada, yada horse shit, everybody wanted to put it in top gear. And if they had to shift a lot, they were pissed.
Right.
It's just, and kind of why the demise of the two-stroke, besides the emissions, you had to shift a lot more often.
Yes,
People
you did.
didn't like it. Yeah.
Yes, you did.
Yeah. So, that was kind of the holdup on this. Now, I was able to do some things, in the late 90s, early 2000s downsped, where if I drove the truck personally, I'd done very, very well. I'd put a driver in it. Ain't no way I have to shift this goddamn thing all the time. I ain't driving it.
Yep.
And that was always the problem. Now that we're to automated manuals with the proper gear spacing, all those issues have been solved. And, they're very, very pleasant to drive now. And in fact, and I sent you the drag race, right, with the 2 Volvos, the 247 versus the 216. And the 216 truck out accelerates the 247 from a dead stop with a load.
I know,
because we've learned how to leverage the horsepower through the gears in the correct manner, and that goes against everything we've been taught.
Everything. I went through this with progressive shifting. The first time I talked about
Mhm.
progressive shifting and people started, I told people, turn it on and play around with it. Everybody hates it, absolutely hates it.
Yep.
And I tried
Yep.
to point out to them, and I wish I would have had a video of this. If you
Mhm.
shifted properly, you accelerated faster, not slower.
You did. But the problem was, Kevin, it was always dependent upon driver skill level.
Correct. It was
And the
tough
driver
to
had
do.
to be
Yeah,
motivated,
right.
had to
Yeah.
want to do it, better not be tired, better not be having a bad day. Hopefully the wife's not divorcing you. You know what I mean? You had
No, you're
all these
right.
things that
You're
would
right.
come into play. And that was always the problem.
Well,
Sure,
maybe
me and you, we could do that all day, every day, and go, look, you guys are stupid.
that,
But the reality of the situation is that most people aren't motivated to the level that we're motivated to do the job that we're doing. You know, they're there to get a paycheck, get from point A to point B, and get home as fast as they can, get their paycheck, and get home to the kids.
I had
That's what
another
they're
advantage.
motivated by. So,
I had another advantage. I grew up racing 2-cycle motorcycles.
yes, yes,
That's
of course,
exactly
of course.
yeah. You had to be a shifting machine. You were shifting gears
Sure,
about 80% of the time.
it's a game for you because that's what you're used to. You
Right.
know, put a little Blendzall in there and your fuel get ready to go out. But
That's right.
no, I get it, and I understand where you're coming from. But now that we have the very good automated manuals, you know, the I shift and the 13 and the 14 speed variant. You know, I'm a Volvo guy. I'm going to toot their horn here. They're by far the best transmissions on the market.
Well,
Period. Right now,
you
there's no doubt about it.
I saw you were defending that statement. Remember, I made this statement when it first started to click with me, the engine architecture, the drive line,
Mm-hmm.
and it popped out of my mind without even me thinking about it at the time. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought I'm absolutely right. I say it again. Volvo has the premier heavy haul platform on the market.
Yes, there's no doubt with a 14 speed with that 38 suction. There's nothing else even close.
Right.
And having the single overdrive on the top so you can go down the highway at highway speed. It is the most versatile transmission in the industry right now, bar none. Easiest to use. You can put anybody in it. You don't have to have any special skills. I know guys love to hold that up as a badge of honor. I can drive an 18 speed. Okay, I get it. Wonderful. But you know what? Your business has to operate, and the new generation drivers coming in, they don't have that skill set that we got when working on the farm or working in dad's shop. That shit doesn't happen anymore. So,
part of this. Hey, I want to. Hey, Alec. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys.
I brought you in about 20 minutes ago,
I'm-
but Joel and I have not stopped talking over each other yet.
Oh, I understand. I'm one of those working cats.
That's right.
And on the road, actually, I just came through Glenwood Canyon and expecting I was going to drop the call, and I didn't. So I'm actually surprised.
Well, look at that. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, people have to work.
Yeah, that's right. Unlike me, I just get to stand around and talk all day.
You know, when I grow up, I want to be like you.
Hey, let's think about this for a second. I understand why this. I get it, but I'm going to make a little bit of fun of us as an industry. The reason this occurs, what I'm about to explain, is it's because we deal with vehicles, and the three of us, we grew up in a vehicle culture. When you think about it, it's not as strong nearly as it used to be. When we grew up, for a lot of us, males especially, it was all about everything with engines, right? I mean, cars are really important. So I get it. The truck isn't a vehicle, and we think about it differently. But once in a while, I just can you imagine? You mentioned 18 speeds. We still have guys who once in a while go, "Yeah, but you can't shift a twin stick." I
hear that stupid shit.
Yeah,
I go, okay, I get it. You know,
right.
It's
it's a great skill to have.
and you know what? The guys that
I also
the
don't know
guys
how to
back in the
shoe a
day that
horse.
drove the twin sticks, they were bitching the exact
Of
same thing.
course.
Oh, these guys that drive single stick transmissions, they're not real truck drivers.
Right.
That's the exact same shit.
Of course.
Exact
But
same
can you
shit.
can you imagine a carpenter going, an automatic nail gun? Hell no, give me my hammer, damn it.
Right.
It's the same thing.
For whatever reason, and listen, I went through a training session with Kem Lehman back in the day when I first got my license and was getting ready to get out on the road. I went through it, and they had this old guy that stood up in front of the class and
Uh-oh. Did we lose Joel or did we lose
talking
me?
about, you
Oh,
know,
there you go.
oh shit.
No, it was.
Yeah.
I
You
think
there?
I think it was me. I lost you for a second.
Okay. So he's talking about truck drivers being the stupidest people in America. And we're all looking at each other trying to figure out what the hell he's talking about. He goes, you are the people that will work harder for less money and wear it like a badge of honor. And we do.
That was true then.
We do.
And I swear it's still true now.
It absolutely is. It's 100% true now.
Yeah.
And, you know, last time that I was on with you, we talked about, you know, if you're running a wasteful operation, it's inflationary. And,
yes.
And, you know, and so when you look at a guy that has a truck and he's driving around at 70 miles an hour, that is inflationary because it's wasteful and it's really not necessary. They'll make up excuses why it's necessary, why they have to do it, but at the end of the day, it's not, and it's inflationary, and it drives down market rates, and it does all kinds of bad things. It just does.
Yes.
But as an industry, we will fight to keep that 70 mile an hour speed. And I'm not for government regulations, but you would think as many people have been around this industry long enough, you damn well know you don't have to drive 70 mile an hour everywhere you go, and that your fuel economy gets better. It drives down maintenance costs, liability goes down.
Stress.
There's so much upside to it, but people will argue against it all day long based on what? I don't understand.
You know, if the ATA were really honest, the ATA is, you know, they always come up with their slogans, and they're actually pretty good at it. If the ATA does anything, they come up with some pretty good slogans. If you've got it, brought it. I thought that one was just fantastic. The problem with this is, and then you know what drivers and owner operators do. No different than the thug union boss they threaten Americans like the union boss did.
Sure.
We'll shut you down. We're so important. You need us so much. We will shut you down. That's our first message if the ATA was honest. And our second message is we bring you everything you have and we do it really inefficiently and we're proud of it. That should be the real slogan.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. As the industry as a whole, you know, the big fleets do it. The owner operators do it. We all stand up and we shout and brag about how inefficient we are. And we wear that like a badge of honor.
Yeah.
My truck was 75 mile an hour. So what? So what? Mine's 3 seconds faster up a hill. So what?
So what? Right.
Don't care. Don't care.
It does.
I mean, it is crazy. And, you know, it's like the politics of trucking. You know, we've kind of, I don't know, maybe regular politics took a lessons out of our page and we just get these divisive wedge issues that we want to use. And, you know, I heard your little video that you had posted the other day, and I'm not sure who that was that you were talking to or what the context was. He's complaining that more truck drivers have died, you know, over this year than any other time. Well, it's easy to understand why. It's all about speed and nothing else.
Oh, well.
If you look at accidents rates actually went down per mile. We run more miles in faster trucks with more traffic on the road. Of course, we're going to have more fatalities.
Well,
there's no way around that.
Hey, Joel, you just convinced me. When that was David Owen, by the way, the founder of Nastic. When I was talking to him,
what's that again?
That was David Owen, the founder of Nastic.
Okay.
That was talking about that.
Okay.
And when he was talking about it, my thought while he was talking was, I have got to get David on Friday's show with all of us when we talk about, him and I got into a good conversation about how we pay drivers. He completely agrees with that. You can't keep paying people by the mile and limiting them by the hour.
Sure.
But the reason I'd like to get him in the conversation, you're not wrong in what you're saying, but you're missing all of his context and the context he's going to bring. He works, doesn't work with, but he monitors very, very closely, and he has for about as long as they've been around, what FMCSA does. And he is a very, very big critic of FMCSA and what a disaster that organization has been. So his take on this is what you said. It's not that it's not true, but there's a whole bunch of other stuff that the FMCSA has screwed up for years that keep us from being as safe as we could be. And when he tells it and goes back through that, it's really interesting to hear.
I have no doubt. Now, I will tell you, you are 100% right. I did not have all the context on it, but just that short snippet I heard, I was ready to fight on that one. I was like, no, this is crazy. But I knew I didn't have the context. So, I figured, okay, I'm going to ask Kevin what the context was used in, because I didn't hear the entire discussion, but just the short snippet I heard, you're like, oh gosh, there needs to be more to this.
Well,
so,
exactly. It would be a good discussion. We've had it. We've talked about paying drivers and how we could be safer and all of that. And that's why I immediately thought I've got to get David in on Friday, so we bring this other context in that I don't know. I ignore FMCSA. If I don't have to read about what they're doing, I don't want to read about what they're doing. David's been the opposite. I mean, he writes letters to them constantly. He's always trying to influence them. And he said he might as well just beat his head against the wall.
So Alec and him would probably be good people to connect to talk about, because Alec's a deep thinker on this subject as well. It sounds like they may come at this with a similar point of view. But the realities of things is there's so many issues that people pick up and they use them as wedge issues, and I don't think they really want to solve them. And one of these, and let's kind of forget about the video though, is when we talk about fatalities in the industry as it relates to speed. A lot of times people just look at the overall numbers. They don't put it in context of fatalities per mile, and they'll say, oh, look, fatalities are up. It's all that goddamn ELD. And it's not. That's
correct.
That's not what the problem is.
Right.
There's more to it than that. And the majority of this, in my opinion, and I've studied the hell out of this, and I know Alec has too, is paying by the mile is dangerous. It just is. You are encouraging people to take risks.
And inefficient. It's dangerous and inefficient.
Trucks that run 70, 75 mile an hour, I'm not going to say they're dangerous. What I am going to say is, if you're involved in an accident in a truck going 75 versus 55, you are much more likely to have a fatality. That's just a fact. Nobody can argue that.
Don't soft pedal it though. That yes, the results are going to be worse. There's no doubt. The odds of an accident are much higher. So I'm not going to let anybody convince me that the truck going 75 because it's flowing with traffic is somehow safer. It's not.
No, it's not. That traffic differential horseshit that OIDA pushes, that's just crap. That's just absolute crap.
It is about reaction
and it's just something
time
that people want.
and
people want to grab onto it and say, "Oh, look what I can say with this report." It's just bullshit.
It is. All you have to do, it's like fuel mileage. Just look at the physics of this. All you have to do is look at how much farther you travel in a millisecond because of that speed. That is the difference between the accident occurring and the accident being avoided. And then if the accident occurs, and it's much more likely to at that speed, the results are going to be devastating.
You're right. 55 is like a firecracker in terms of energy. 75 is like a claymore mine.
Yeah.
That is the difference between the two. And there's no way around that. It is what it is. You're carrying much more energy into the event at 75 than 55. And you cannot explain that away. It's impossible. It is physics, like you said. And the sooner we get that around our heads, and I don't even want the government making it a rule. I think we should be smart enough as an industry to go, oh, look, this might be dangerous. I can slow down. But unfortunately, we're not.
That's the other reason I want to get David in on the Friday conversation, is I can promise you this. Whether we agree on the problems or the solutions, the one thing I will tell you is we will all agree on the fact that it is not the government's job to fix this. It's ours. And we don't want the government coming in to fix it.
Right, because when they fix it, we might get something that we like, but we're going to get 15 things that we don't.
Yeah, we'll suffer if we. And that's why I fight this all the time with these groups that just think the government's the answer to everything. Oh, the government has to fix parking. No, they don't. And we don't want them fixing parking. But it's always the government needs to fix something. And that's why we are with the giant bloated government that is costing us all a fortune and not getting anything accomplished.
Correct.
And David feels the exact same way about that. So we could argue about what was the cause, what's the cure, but we'll all agree that this is our problem to solve in the industry, not the government's.
Awesome. I would definitely be good to get him on.
Yeah, he's got.
Sounds like a genius to me.
Well, he's got great insight into the FMCSA because he fights it constantly. Yeah, and here's the thing. We always talk about the ATA, the big bad ATA, and I've tried to say, look, don't waste your emotional energy, constantly thinking the ATA is the enemy. The ATA does what...
Right, let's not... Yeah.
The ATA
let's just drop the bullshit of a wedge between this group and that group. Look, we have, as owner-operators, a different agenda than ATA. That does not make them evil. It just doesn't.
That's right.
ATA, we have to get our shit together as owner-operators if we want to have a group similar to what the ATA is. There are groups out there, but I don't think they do a really good job. They're all for government solutions, or they make up bullshit and they float this shit out there and they get people to buy into it. They make these false narratives on subjects that, I mean, your head spins when you look at it, like the traffic differential bullshit.
So here's an interesting.
And they want to have a trucker strike and all of that other stuff.
Well, here's an interesting comparison, and I'll take a lot of heat, but I've taken heat on this topic for a couple decades, so it's nothing new. NASTIC. We're talking about David Owen and NASTIC. How many people know? I did not know NASTIC existed for a long time. They just were not on my radar. And for me to miss something in the industry is kind of tough because that's what I do. I'm constantly reading. I'm at events all the time. And when I first came across NASTIC, I thought they must have been new. They weren't new when I first found them. They've been around a long time. How many people in the industry don't know who they are, though?
I would agree with that.
But how many people in the industry don't know who OIDA is? Not many. Here's the difference. They're very similar in their mission. They're both professional associations like the ATA. The ATA is an association. OIDA focuses on owner-operators and independent drivers. NASTIC focuses on very small trucking companies. That's their core. Here's why you know about one and you don't know about the other. OIDA is the one out there in the industry driving wedges constantly. I have never seen a group that wants to fight more with everybody else in the industry and claim everybody else is the problem. Their owner-operators, their members are perfect. Everybody else is the problem. But because they do that, we all know about them. But honestly, what have they done to really help their members? Their education is abysmal. And that's what an association should do, in my opinion. They should bear for education, helping us all be better. On the other hand, NASTIC is kind of like the submerged whale. Nobody knows they're there. I was shocked at how big they are and how much good they do. But it's because David has been focused on one thing. He kind of deals with the government in the back by himself. He's fighting with the FMCSA all the time. He doesn't make it public, and he doesn't drag all of his members into it. He provides them with really good business tools, the best fuel card in the industry. And he's been doing it for 3 decades, and he's almost unheard of in some cases.
And hats off to them, because these guys that want to drive wedge issues, and if you have an association and the mission of that association is to attack other associations, it is completely ridiculous. And here's the thing. Look, and I know this because I've lived it. When you're an owner operator, you have a completely different business model than a guy that's got 10 trucks or a guy that's got 50 trucks. And he's got a different model than the guy that had 10 and the guy that has 1,000. That does not make them the enemy in any way, shape, or form. They have different goals, ideas, agendas that they have to work within. And that doesn't make evil, stupid, or anything else. It just makes them different. And sometimes these ideas will clash. But that it still doesn't. You don't have to be stupid and get mouthy and degrade people. Okay, they've got a different set of ideas they're working with. The thing is to find out how can we work together, even though they need a different outcome. You're much better off to do that, and we see none of that in the industry.
I just had a breakthrough. I started studying success really early in my adulthood, like really early 20s. I started reading books about, how to be successful. I started reading autobiographies about people that were successful. I got obsessed with it. One of the first lessons that I learned, it's so simple, was that you vilify rich people, you will never be one. Your brain won't let you. If you believe that just because they have earned a lot of money, they are somehow evil now, your brain is not going to let you accomplish that. We're good human beings. We don't want to do something that would make us evil. So if you want to be successful and you want to be wealthy, you can't spend your days vilifying the people who have accomplished that and calling them evil. Well, what's the dream of many owner-operators? Not all, but the idea is, well, if I'm successful with one truck and I buy two, and many of them want to grow a fleet, right? Well, if you sit back and vilify the big fleets all the time, I promise you're never going to be one.
You are 1,000% right. And me and my brother bucked heads over this very early on. When we were just getting started, we started to grow. The business model started to change. I was very resistant to it. We were all about efficiency, and then economies of scale started to come into play. I didn't quite grasp it yet at that time. And I tell you, we went round and round, and you could not be more right on this. And when you hear somebody that has 2 or 3 trucks that go, oh, the mega carriers, that's bullshit, lost. They're done, they're lost. They just are. They just are.
Swift
and
started with
you have
one
to
truck.
Understand. That's exactly right. And you know what? Swift doesn't operate today the way they did when they had 2 trucks.
Not even
My
close.
brother does not operate today with 100 trucks the way we did when we started with 1 truck. It's completely different. And it's not wrong. It doesn't make him an idiot. It doesn't make him an asshole. It is what business requires: different solutions, different thinking, different mindset. And if you have a closed mind and you think that the way you operate 1 truck is how you're going to operate 100, you're smoking crack.
Yep, absolutely. But on the other hand, it's also ignorant to think with 1 truck you should be operating the way the big fleets are. But some people try to do that too.
No, yes. That's exactly right.
Well, I have written a couple of articles on the efficiency versus the economies of scale, and owner operators have an inherent competitive advantage because an owner operator with 1 truck can be very, very efficient.
Absolutely.
But as Joel is suggesting, once you become 2 trucks, Joel and I driving the 2 trucks, or Travis. I mean, that efficiency drops off. In fact, that's a good thing that Joel's out of the truck and Travis is in it. But, but it's very, very hard to grow and keep that quality efficiency part of the equation.
It
You know,
is.
Joe and I have talked, and we say, well, we don't know that we want to get too big outside of, personally training people,
Well,
and that takes months
one of
to
the
get to where drivers are.
when somebody wants to criticize me, one of the things they've targeted over the years, well, if you knew so much about running a trucking company, your trucking company still, you failed. Well, no, I didn't.
Yeah.
I sold it.
I've heard that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. First off, I didn't fail. It was a very successful company at the time I sold it. Well, why'd you sell it then? If you knew so much, because when I got to 11 trucks, I realized I did not want to run a trucking company.
It becomes a personnel company.
It was not the part of trucking that I was interested in. I was not interested in running a bunch of trucks and babysitting employee drivers.
Yes. Yes. We're bumping up against the exact same thing.
Exactly.
I think I've told Alec a couple of times. I said, look, Kevin has this force of personality that he could run a 10 truck fleet just on your personality. If somebody's going to look at you, anybody that knows anything about trucking, I'm not fucking with this guy. I'm just not doing it, And so here we go. Kevin can operate 10 trucks because he's Kevin. Just simply because you're Kevin, you can operate 10 trucks. I could probably do the exact same thing. Right. It would take all my time. I like to do research and development these days much more than I like bumping docks. I just do. It's how my mind works.
Exactly.
I need to have trucks in the real world to validate my thoughts and ideas and opinions. So we're keeping some stuff in the family. I'm always going to have some trucks running. Am I going to attempt to build a 100 truck fleet like my brother? There is no way in hell. Ain't happening. I see the hoops he had to jump through to do where he's at. He's very comfortable. There's no doubt now, but it took him years to get there and literally was working 24/7 for years on end.
Yeah.
No vacations, never went anywhere, never done anything, just work. And, now I'm glad to see it because it would have killed him if he would have kept the pace up that he was at. Now he bought himself a house down in Southern Florida. He's got himself a boat down there. He has a good time. And and things are very well for him. I'm not looking to try to repay. I'm too old. Don't have enough years. I'd drop dead before he even begin to make that happen.
I can promise you, if I went back to my 20s, the outcome would be the same. The things you have to spend your time on to build a large trucking company are not the things I want to spend my time on. That just doesn't fit.
They're not pleasant.
Right. It's not what I enjoy.
It's not fun. It's not pleasant. I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
Right there with you.
All right. Well, we've blown through about 45 minutes of the show. We've had people on hold the whole time. What do you say we take some calls?
Yeah, we better do that.
We'll get started in Oklahoma. Paul, welcome to the program.
Well, the wait wasn't as long today as it was yesterday.
Hey, get closer. Yeah. Yesterday, I left about 6 people on hold after they had been there an entire hour. When David and I start talking, that's what happens. Joel, I do another podcast with David Owen, the guy that was on yesterday. I do another. He has a podcast himself, but it only gets distributed to NASTC members. It's not, a public podcast. I don't know if you've caught David or not. David is the only adult human being left on the planet that doesn't own a cell phone or a computer. He really doesn't. I spent a couple months with him down there. He does not. The funny thing is, I'm gonna out him a little bit here. He won't mind. He does not have a cell phone. Does not have a computer. He is as old school as it gets, and he basically owns a software company, though. Mystic Software is I know, it's kind of funny. He owns a technology company and a software company. He says he doesn't have a cell phone, and one day we got in his car after we were going to go to dinner after work. I'd been working with him all day at the office. We were going to go to dinner. We were going to go home to pick up his wife, and she's coming with us, Bonnie. So we're on the way home, And I'm talking to him, and all of a sudden I see him. He's just messing with something on his dash, and the next thing I know, I hear a dial tone and a call, and he's calling Bonnie and saying, "Hey, we're on the way home. We'll pick you up for dinner." He gets off the phone. I said, "David, you lied." And he said, "What?" And I said, "You told me you don't have a cell phone." He said, "I don't." And I said, "Well, of course you do. You just made a phone call." He said, "Well, yeah, but my IT guys just rigged this up for me." Well, they rigged it up by putting an iPhone in his console. And he but to him, he doesn't have a cell phone. I don't even think he knows that there's actually a cell phone in his car. He just knows that they told
That's
him,
pretty funny.
if you hit these buttons on the dash, you can call Bonnie. I mean, that's really.
Yeah, if you turn the windshield wiper on and flash the blinker 6 times, it calls home.
Right. But I don't have a cell phone. Right. So it's kind
Oh,
of funny
shoot.
because the way we do the podcast, again, his IT guys have this all set up for him. He picks up his regular desk phone like he's had for, 3 decades, and he calls me and we start talking. Just like he would call me any other day, we just start talking and we talk for an hour or so, and then his people take and make a podcast out of it. I mean, there's no
Kevin,
introductions. He doesn't come on and say, this is the podcast, Kevin.
yeah.
It's just he calls me like any other phone call. We start talking, and his IT guys turn it
Does
into a podcast.
does he call you on a rotary phone?
It is a slightly modern desktop business phone. Yeah.
Okay, all right. I just
Yeah,
wondered
right.
if it was still a
Right.
rotary.
No, it's not a
That would
rotary.
be impressive if
That
it was,
would be.
if
I know.
IT was converting his rotary into a digital. That
Yeah.
would be impressive.
Yeah, it would. Yeah. So, all right, Paul, what's on your mind?
Back to me.
Hey, that's what I was going to say. You got to get closer to your phone or speak up or something. I can barely hear you.
I was just about at my house. Crappy signal. Is that any better?
No,
Maybe?
it's not a
Maybe
signal.
not.
It's a volume issue. Just talk louder or get closer or something.
Oh, okay. I'll scream like I'm at the truck stop. I'll scream like Todd Spencer at Oida.
There you go.
ATA is the problem.
Yeah, that's right.
So if Cummins could cut a deal with Volt Shift Transmission behind that new engine, that would make it really good, right?
Well, unfortunately,
Maybe.
Cummins
But that would never
Cummins has
happen.
Cummins has bought Meritor, so they should have access to. Meritor had an automatic transmission that they developed with EF quite some time ago. They could roll that back out and modernize it, I suppose.
Yeah. So,
But I don't believe that Volvo would sell them iShift. I don't think.
probably not.
I was going to make this point
Work your
earlier,
own
so
shit out, yeah.
Paul, thank you for bringing this back up. I started to make this point, and then we went down some rabbit hole like we always do. I was about to say, when I was talking about we've been missing the driveline we wanted from the 90s, and now we have it, but we really only have it from one OEM. What I don't understand, they're finally copying the engine technology, which is pretty darn complicated. When it comes right down to it, there's a lot of variables. There's a lot going on. The drive lines are pretty damn simple if you think about it, right? I mean, there's not a lot of complicated technology going into those drive lines. Why haven't the other OEMs picked up on this yet?
Manufacturing cost. When you start to build a multi-speed transmission, and you've got a factory that is set up to produce a countershaft transmission with 18 speeds or 13 or whatever the number may be, it's very difficult to say, okay, let's wipe out all this production line and tooling, and we're going to set up to build a single countershaft. And they went for years and years touting the benefits of dual countershaft. So when Eaton did finally do their redesign and went to helical cut gears and shrunk them down and controlled, they've done a lot of things right. They did stay with dual countershafts, though. Now, they've done it in the most efficient way possible that you can for a dual countershaft transmission. The thing that I personally think they got wrong was they kept the traditional gear spacing the 13 or the 18 speed manual that we're used to has certain steps in between it.
Right.
And there wasn't a whole lot of variation in the new ones because they just weren't grasping the idea of running a 216 overdrive. And obviously, the percentage of gear step, it impacts the rear axle ratio is impacted by that percentage of gear step in terms of RPM drop. And they just didn't think about that. And it's pretty clear that they didn't think about that. That may change moving forward here. It would surprise me if we start to see a change in that regard, to where they'll probably still run the dual countershaft, but we may start to see some different steps in the gear ratios that are more conducive to aggressive down speeding.
Yeah.
So if I'm gonna buy another,
Hey, Paul,
I'm
come
my
back to your
plan is
phone.
buy-
You got way worse. I don't
Can
know
you-
what you just did. Sounds like you got out of the cab and left your phone in the truck.
I'm not even. I'm standing in front of the car, in front of the house.
Hey.
Is that any better?
Can anybody hear him?
Just barely.
Yeah. If
What
we
the hell?
can't on the phone, they're not going to hear you on the radio. You got to figure this out.
Okay, hang on. Let me. Technology is wonderful when it works. Is that any better?
No, nothing changed.
Ah, oh, shit. Hang on a minute.
All right.
I'll
Hey,
get the
here's what I'm going to
old-fashioned
do. I'm going to put you back in the queue. Angie, if you could pick up Paul and see if we can figure out his volume issue. It's really quiet. Let's go to Pennsylvania. We'll come back to you, Paul. Darren, what's on your mind?
Hey, thanks for taking my call. A couple of months back, actually probably in the spring, I don't remember when, I called in to Joel how to run of all the rent. My buddy has a 2024 shift that I was going to rent sometime this summer, and finally 2 weeks ago I got to rent it for 2 days. So I just was going to talk about some fuel mileage numbers that I got out of that compared to my glider kit that I use.
Sure.
I'm the guy that hauls pallets in Pennsylvania, so I had my truck all set up. I put a lift axle and a 6x2 setup with the 264 rear end ratios, and I have a 60 series Detroit, and last year I got 8.5 on my full year for mileage, so I'm pretty crazy with fuel mileage numbers of what I got, but finally got to run an iShift for 2 days. So it's a 2024 and it has a 13-speed transmission, and I forget if it's 2.15s or 2.16s, but it's one of those that I have for the rear end ratio, the truck that I rented.
Okay.
And this thing is just like straight off the lot. He never put a drop of fuel treatment in it. He doesn't do any of that. He runs like 70 to 75, pulls a covered wagon with it. So he runs a herd. Never ran fuel treatment ever in it. He has extra thick oil. I think he said 1030 instead of the 530 or whatever it is recommended. So I don't know how much of a difference that makes, but nothing special really besides just pulling it off the lot.
Did I just hear you say he runs thick oil?
Well, thicker than what they recommend, I think. Don't they recommend like a
5?
The
TC should be 530, and he's running a 1030, which is acceptable but not recommended.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. I mean, the 30 is the weight of the oil. I mean, that's the weight of it's a 30 weight oil. The first number, from my understanding, is just cold viscosity. It's just its viscosity at cold temperature. So
yes,
once
and it has more to do with when the engine is starting, getting to lubricate the pieces parts fast enough, that you don't have any engine wear. That is what.
Yeah. So all I wanted to say there is 30 weight is lightest oil we have available to us. It's not a thick oil, even if it's a 1030. I mean, that is the lightest oil available to us.
Okay, good enough. I thought maybe it would just be a little more efficient yet if you'd put the 530 in.
No,
maybe it wouldn't actually make that much of a difference.
No, it's really about startup protection, like Joel just said. We want it to flow faster at cold temperatures. It will end up at 0, I'll bet. We do it in cars. Now we're down to 0.20 in cars. That's a startup issue, and it really decreases wear at startup. But it really doesn't have much to do with efficiency at all.
Yep. Okay. Well, for the day, I ran both days I set my cruise at 58, and I ran it in the EE plus. Is that, I don't know what that stands for. I think that's the most economy setting you can run it in. And I set the cruise at 58, and just left it do its thing. And I ran a load of pallets out to New Jersey, and my weights are estimate because I don't weigh every load, but this was a little bit of a heavier load than I usually haul. So I'm guessing somewhere around 70,000 gross with my load of pallets going to New Jersey. And then I ran 135 miles empty down to Quarryville, Pennsylvania, and picked up a load of lumber. Went 95 miles back to my shop with that. So that was my round for the first day. And I got 8.9 miles to the gallon doing that round, which I was super impressed with that. Doing that, the best I ever got on a round like that was 8.2. So it wasn't like tons better, but impressive for the first time I ever ran this truck, I thought. So,
7/10 is a pretty big,
it is.
pretty big delta when we were talking about fuel mileage. It's definitely. Okay, go ahead.
And the thing with this is too, like my truck, I drive this thing all day long. Like I don't run cruise. I can't run. I mean, I can run cruise, but I'll lose a good half mile a gallon just running cruise. So I'm sitting here driving my truck all day long, paying attention to everything I do. This one, I set the cruise, sat back and relaxed, and it still got better than mine. So then the second day, I ran 127 miles with a load of pallets to Quakertown, Pennsylvania, came back empty, and hooked into a second load of pallets, went down to East Berlin, Pennsylvania, and came back. And both of those loads were, my guess would be 60 to 65,000 gross. And that day, I popped out 10.1. So that's running one-way loaded, coming back empty. So my truck, there again, I mean, I watch it on Skin Gauge. This time of year, I'm doing good to hit 9. Maybe on a really good day, I can get 9.2 out of it doing those loads. So I was pretty impressed. And the worst thing about it was I had to take the truck back after 2 days. That thing, I tell you what, I have never driven a truck that was so fun to drive in my life. So I was fully impressed with the truck. I was fun to actually get to run.
Good. And I'm assuming that was a 6x4.
It was a 6x4. Yes.
So you're potentially, if that would have been a 6x2, you're looking at another half mile a gallon you would have added to that. Potentially.
That was what I was going to ask. So you're saying that would make sense. I didn't know what the number was. So for what I do, I would absolutely do a 6x2 if I ever get one, just because I run so many empty miles. But I still can't make the math work though. You're
running short. You don't run a lot of miles, and it makes it hard, unfortunately. But it's I'm glad to hear that worked out the way that it did. And that has been my experience when I help people spec trucks, and I've done a lot of these that have come out of gliders, and they've tried this, and the majority of them have had the same experience that you just had. Not all of them, but the majority of them have. Now, when I get into folks that a lot of them tend to be older school, and you say, okay, here's what we need to do on the wheelbase. No, I want a longer wheelbase. You have to understand this is going to impact your fuel. I don't care. I want the longer wheelbase. Okay, here's the longer wheelbase. I want a deer guard on the front. You have to understand this is going to impact your fuel. I don't care. I want a deer guard. Okay, I get it. And so everybody's happy, right? And then they get out and run it. Well, I don't get 12 like you do.
Of course you don't.
Let's go back to what I do. Of course, but it's very good.
Right.
And most, and 99% of the time, it's better than what they had done in the past, even with, I would call a flaw in the spec, but for they run in an area where there's a lot of deer. I get it. I understand it. There is a business case for putting one of those big honking deer guards up front.
Here we go again. This has been common this week. It wasn't
ready to connect. Click connect to show now. You are connected as the host. Welcome, host. You are now in the host room and can manage your callers from the Call-in Studio web interface. Audio recording is on.
I'm putting on Pittsburgh Power's dyno. I'm putting 620 to the ground. Now that's obviously higher RPMs. But that thing, I tell you what, I was knocked
Yep.
out. It was like impressive on the power. Like that thing didn't lack
Yes.
anything compared to what even
Yes.
I got coming out of mine.
Yes.
Like it was
So
very impressive.
here's the big difference, and this is something that Volvo is known for globally. Volvo engines make more torque and horsepower at lower RPM than just about anything out on the road. And the problem we've always had in the past, and Kevin, you exemplified this way back when you go, these things suck and they don't pull worth a damn and the fuel mileage is horrible, because we were putting traditional gearing in an engine that makes horsepower down around 1,000 RPM. And we're running it down the road at 1,700.
Yep.
And so when you get them geared right, and I'm so glad that you brought this up, you don't have to have 600 or 700 peak horsepower to put a smile on your face. You just don't. Gear the damn truck right for the power curve, and you're going to have that same smile with 455 horsepower. Now, you will be about 2 or 3 seconds up a very long, hard pull, like Donner, when I was running California all the time. The guys with the 600, they were 2, 3 seconds faster up that hill than me. So what? Don't care. Don't care.
Hey, Joel,
I just care about the number at the end of the day.
Just so you know, when Volvo, now remember, when Volvo brought out that engine, I was a Volvo guy. That's all I owned. I loved Volvos, but I had Series 60s in mine, and Volvo was my sponsor of my big seminar back then. I was excited about that engine, really excited. And but I didn't understand it. I was trying to spec it the way I always spec the Series 60, and the thing just failed miserably for me. And I thought, how disappointing. The other engine I was excited about? Simply because of their reputation as building quality products. I was excited about the Mercedes.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I was excited about that engine. It turned now. When I bought mine, the reason I ordered a Mercedes was they were the last ones allowed to build non-emission engines.
Yes.
And that was my biggest decision on why I was going to buy the Mercedes instead of the Detroit. I needed another truck and I wanted non-emission before, they ran out. Problem was when I ordered mine, so did every other fleet in the country. And my order kept getting pushed back. And eventually, when they built mine, they ran out of non-emission engines. So I ended up with an emission engine. And because of that change, for some reason, they also switched me to the Meritor transmission. They totally wiped out my spec. I had been waiting almost a year for the truck, so I couldn't afford to order another one. That was the worst truck I've ever owned.
Yeah.
Hands down.
Yeah.
Worst truck I must have brought that truck back to the yard on a hook like 5 times in 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. We had a bunch of those early on when we had a bunch of Columbias in the fleet. They all had that Mercedes in it. And once we started to understand things, it wasn't so bad. Actually, if we would have had a little more insight and knowledge before we laid down the base spec, it probably would have ended up being a fairly decent engine for us. They weren't horrific, and I have to admit, Detroit supported them very well as we got out to 700,000 and 800,000 miles with them. They were excellent with them. It was no questions asked. We'll just replace the damn thing, and they were very, very good about it. So I will definitely give them props on that. They were excellent.
They rebuilt mine after 600,000 miles.
Yeah, they done one for us that had 800,000 miles. It was pissing antifreeze out one of the heads, and they just replaced the whole engine, never charged us.
Yeah.
So very, very good. Had excellent support on those engines for sure.
All right. I just looked at the clock, Darren. We got to move along. Calls are piling up on us. And Henry's here. Look at that. Henry, thanks for showing up.
Hey. Well, better late than never, I guess.
Hey, I explained to everybody yesterday and again today that my show with all my co-hosts now and every day, it's like herding cats, but there's a good reason for that, because all of my co-hosts are actually out in the real world doing the things they come on here to help us with.
That's right.
Yeah. So
I was real world, woke up and had to organize freight.
Yeah, there you go. So what's new and exciting in your world this morning?
Not much other than when I came on, I heard you talking about the oil, and I saw a video about a 0.4 weight oil.
0.4?
Apparently, yeah. Apparently Nissan or something is using it, and they showed them for it.
Hey, Henry, think you're
Yeah.
confusing some news stories. I think you were reading about Diddy's party with baby oil.
Well, they actually in the video poured it and compared how it poured to cooking oil.
Yeah.
And it poured faster than cooking oil.
So that is a PD 0W4, right?
Yeah, PD.
That's right.
My daughter's Nissan takes that oil.
Does it really? Wow, I hadn't seen that.
Yeah,
one yet.
I have a Toyota or Lexus that takes 0W16.
Wow, I haven't seen those yet. That is some thin oil. Holy cow.
Yep, it sure is.
Wow.
Keep in mind, the majority of engine wear occurs at startup.
Yeah, you're right.
Not when you're going down the road.
Yeah.
So getting that stuff to flow where it needs to go, that's a big deal.
Good point.
Well, I'm like, what if they have a -5 weight is the first number? Does that mean that if you open the cap and it's sitting there down, that the oil, it'll just jump out? It'll be like anti-gravity.
It comes floating out, right?
That's right. Oh, man.
Oh, shoot.
All right.
Let's start to go towards that gaseous form like in a two-stroke.
That's right.
There you go.
We were talking about two-strokes earlier, too. So let's get back to some calls. Let's try Paul again. Paul, can we hear you now?
I hope so.
Can you hear? Oh,
can
there
you hear me
go.
now?
That's much better.
I think I need to get a new phone because I got a new headset, but I don't have you at real good volume, but it's turned up all the way. But worry about that later.
Yeah, we can hear you much better.
The new Cummins engine, what horsepower do you know what they're going to be available at, or nobody knows yet?
I don't know. I think they're going to be very similar to the range that they have today with very similar torque ratings. I don't know where peak is going to be as far as peak torque, and that is going to be very important to determine whether you're going to be able to pull it down really low like you can with the Volvo to Detroit.
Okay.
Cummins has some engines now that they do have a basement that's a little lower, and that is without the new engine geometry going on. So I would suspect that we're going to see 850 or 900 as the peak on it. And if that comes to fruition, they will be able to run some very aggressively downsped powertrains. They have the right engine architecture now. They've really upped their game on the fuel system, which I think is going to work out very well for it. It is going to be a very, very competitive engine, and like I said, it's good for everybody. It's going to push the rest of the industry to improve, and I know I've been extremely hard on Cummins for a long time, but that has been my experience, and I'm just telling you what I know to be true out in the real world. I'm glad to hear they've done some things different on the liners. That has always been an issue for them. They made a lot of changes on that engine, and I think it's going to be a good one.
Isn't it amazing, Joel, that all these years of engine design, that they're still coming up with new stuff?
It is, and it's good to see. I mean, that engine was released before downspeeding was a thing. It has never been ideal since we started, even since 308, and we dropped below 308. That engine architecture really didn't match up well for those types of ratios, and it's just damn good to see that they've got something now that they're going to push the industry with this one. And you know, look, so is International. They're going to push us all, and we've got 4 choices now that are going to be very top tier. You know, I hear PACCAR is going to do a 14-liter with that same type of geometry, you know, that you know Volvo had for a long time, and that Detroit has run for several years now, and they're finally going to get on board. And and it's going to be good for owner operators and small fleets, and it's just good for the industry as a whole.
You know, when we talk about downspeeding, though, it's really been happening. I remember when I drove for Victor F. Weavers back in the late 80s, and the Cummins people in talking to us about bringing our RPMs down from where we were.
Yes. Yeah.
All the OEMs been 30 years.
Well, it's been longer than that. It started on the gasoline side, you know, when we had the Buick Straight 8 and all that. They looked at piston speed and they go, we got to lower the piston speed to bring efficiencies up. So they went to the V8, and they figured out the correct geometry on the engine, and that's why we went from big block to small block. And you start to look at the geometry of the engine and the piston speed and efficiencies, and so that has been very well known over on the automotive side since the 1920s and 30s. You know, we had to do something with piston speed, and you know, by comparison, diesel engines were always considered a low RPM, which is not necessarily piston speed in the context that we're using it. But because it was very low RPM, nobody really thought a whole lot about it. And in America, where we had cheap fuel prices, it was all about performance. And when we put the geometry in there that Cummins was formerly using, or that they currently use, you know, that's good torque rise, and it's good for that snappy acceleration. We can do that in other ways now that we couldn't back then. So we don't have to have that super fast acceleration away from top dead center. You know, we can do it now with multiple fuel injections. We can do it now with different turbocharging technologies. Volvo does it with the turbo compounder. You know, the Volvo engine was always kind of sluggish there for a while, and then, you know, we put the TC on the back of it, and we pick up a lot of low end power and torque, to the point where we just had a caller call in and say, oh, this thing will run with my 600. You know what I mean? And so the progression has been pretty astounding. And pay attention. I know we love to dog on these engineers. Oh, they don't know shit. It's got to have 600 or 700. It does not. It does not have to have 600 or 700 horsepower in order to run up a hill and to put a smile on your face. You can run a spine 450, 500. In fact, my next truck will be a 500 1950 at 900. So it's going to have a boatload of horsepower down low.
Well, and part of it's in the mind, because I had a DD15, a 400 1750, and I was thrilled with that engine.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
One more. One more thing for Kevin.
Yeah.
The other day you had that guy that called in that wanted to become an owner operator, and you said he was in good shape to do it. The only thing you didn't mention is I'm pretty sure he lives in California. He's going to have his own authority because of AB5, unless he's going to move.
Oh, yeah, I don't remember the call, so I'm not sure if he was in California or not. But you're right.
Yeah, well, he was near the end of the show on Monday.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure he had a stiff. He said he had a good house payment in
right.
California.
You're right. He did. Yeah, and it looks like AB5 is not going away in California. They've lost just about every lawsuit against AB5.
Yeah, well, the insurance for a new entrance kind of steep, so and all insurance is going up. So
well,
I'll let you get next, man.
He'll just have to move. Good point. All right, let's go to Georgia. Tony, welcome.
Morning. Hey, Kevin. How does this sound? Do I need to go on the phone, or is the Bluetooth okay?
That Bluetooth sounds like dog doo-doo. That is awful.
All right. Before we get into class,
here. So,
are
you trying to say that when you, well, I just have to hope I don't get caught, but at least I have hours of service today. Are you trying to say that revenue, like if a broker or a shipper coughs up an extra $400 on a load or a lane or whatever, that does not transfer directly to the bottom line?
Well, of course it
not
doesn't.
all of it.
It can't.
It absolutely cannot. All of that money will not go to the bottom line because you've got to pay all your bills and expenses.
Okay, I'm not seeing that I've already called mathematical malpractice on that. You can't
wait a minute.
save in fuel what you lose. You can't save in fuel what you lose in revenue.
You absolutely 100% can. It's been proven time and time. And in fact, we've got a calculator that you can put your numbers in that will show that. Now, here is the caveat on this. If the rate is outrageously high and fuel prices are outrageously low, sure, it makes sense to speed up a little bit. But where rates are right now versus fuel prices, there's no way in hell you're going to make more money running faster. It ain't going to happen.
Here's the other thing
that I'm glad you finished my sentence. But
here's the other thing that might confuse
what about
you.
the revenue part, though? Because Brandy called, that was her point. That was Brandy's point.
So, Tony, hold on. Let me explain why this is confusing you. So when we say $1 of revenue does not go to the bottom line, that is absolutely true. It does not. But if you try to make the comparison, here's my load and it pays $1,000 and I deduct all my expenses and I get to keep $400. Now, if the broker adds $100 more, yes, that's going to transfer to the bottom line, but that's not what's really happening. You made a comparison of a lower revenue load and then somebody added revenue to it. Well, of course, that's another $100 on revenue. But revenue does not transfer to the bottom line. It can't. We have expenses. But when you calculate the profit ahead of time,
now we're clear.
And then
you made it sound like that if somebody gave me $400 for that load, and I put it, like, say there was a way to put it directly into a fuel advance, that goes directly into you save that directly on fuel, which does transfer. That's what it was sounding like, that you weren't willing to admit that. Okay.
You are correct.
And I'll make room for Matt. That's all.
Okay. Yeah, no, you are correct on that. If we calculate the profit of the load first, and then we're able to get more revenue, yes, that goes to the bottom line. But the other thing we have to remember here is you have much more control over your expenses. There are lots of things you can do today to lower your expenses. There are very few things you can do today to raise your revenue. So it's one thing to say, well, if the broker throws another $400, oh, well, great if he's going to do that, but that's not really in your control.
And it happens on occasion.
Right.
And the other thing that when people do this calculation, they automatically assume that they're going to be able to pick up an extra load every time because of the speed.
Right.
There's going to be no delays. They're not going to get stopped at any place, and that they're going to be able to complete that load and collect that revenue within a specific time. And it almost never happens.
Correct. Yeah.
You get a few loads here and there, and then when you figure out your loss in fuel mileage and your loss in maintenance cost, it doesn't make any sense to run that higher speed the majority of the time. There will be instances where you'll pull up a single load or a unique situation that has an exceptionally high rate versus fuel prices. Yes, mathematically you can make it work then. But for most people, most of the time, it is not going to work.
Right.
I agree with what you all are saying there. That being said, being the exception, because I'm able to plan my week out so much farther. But I was talking about this to somebody the other day, and almost everybody's ran a drill sometime or another, right? But often running the drill bit slower makes it cut faster.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong on that. It's
just running it faster. Sometimes running the bit faster just burns up the bit faster, and you get the hole is done as quickly. So having the right speed for the job to be done, much like you pick the right speed used on a drill or a mill on a milling machine, it really isn't that much different.
Right. Yes. If you're a machinist and you're trying to drill through a certain metal, there will be a recommended RPM with the bit that you're trying to use that you're supposed to run at. Running it faster than that, you're right, is often counterproductive. Almost every time it is. You burn up the bit. Then you got to buy a new bit and you wasted all this time. So you're right, Henry. There's no doubt.
All right. Hey, I have a question. I just saw this. So does anybody know that Volkswagen owns a division called Scout Motors? Is this the old International Scout?
Yeah, sort of.
I did.
It's going to be an EV.
Yeah,
It's going to be an EV.
I just saw that they rolled out these 2 EVs, and they're you could look at it and go, yeah, that's kind of the evolution of what a Scout would have looked like today. I didn't even know they were still around.
Well, they weren't.
Oh,
They just bought the name and revived it, huh?
Yeah.
Well, when Volkswagen bought into Navistar, that sort of was in sachet.
Huh.
That
Yeah,
makes sense.
they're showing a pickup and an SUV like the original Scout, but they're EVs. That's sad. Huh. All right.
Yep, and also along that line of EVs, GM brought the Hummer name back.
Yep.
Which is also an EV.
Which was stupid even when it was a internal combustion engine. I don't know why they ever built that stupid 4-cylinder engine or 5-cylinder engine when there were so many good engines on the market to choose from, but that's another story.
Oh, on the smaller Hummer?
Yeah. That stupid little 5-cylinder thing. I don't know where that ever came from.
Well, it was a variant between the 6 and the 4 of the Ecotec.
Yeah. Let's get to some phone calls because they are piling up on us today. We're just going to go in order. Let's go to Florida. Brian, welcome.
Good morning. I think this is more for Joel, but I had a Vomac tech tell me that Volvo's bringing a German motor over here. Have you heard anything about that and details on it?
No.
I figured you would know unless you couldn't comment on it.
No, typically
Okay.
the Swedes and the Germans are very competitive, and I just would think their pride wouldn't let them do that, but I have not heard of that.
Okay, I figured I'd ask, because you would know, and who knows what the technician knows, and he might just rumor mill and all that. So
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
that's all I was curious.
All right.
Gotcha.
Let's go to Washington. Talon, welcome.
Hey, well, first of all, I have a comment for that previous caller. I also had a technician one time at Freightliner tell me I should delete a brand new truck.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
So you can't always listen to what the technicians have to say.
I find the technicians to be very bad to talk to in certain aspects because, they'll tell you, all these new whatever are junk. Well, they only see the broken ones. I've never taken a truck to the shop to complain that it was running too good.
Yeah,
exactly.
You are not wrong, Henry. That the context is not there. And oftentimes when you talk to guys in the shop, especially when you have a new rollout, these are going to be a little more difficult for them to work on. It's going to be a pain in their ass. It's fresh in their memory. And then all of a sudden, it's a piece of junk. That's just the way it goes. And there's 10,000 of them that are out there running just fine. We've got one in May here, and it's a pain in that tech's ass. Now every one of them's a piece of junk. You know what I mean? You really have to take that with a grain of salt for sure.
A friend of mine came up with this statement. He always said, finding out whether a new engine is good or bad by talking to a technician is like going to a divorce attorney and asking them if marriage counseling works.
There you go. Yeah, I'm not disagreeing there.
I experienced that when I asked bankruptcy attorneys if bankruptcy was a good idea. They told me it was.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, they told me it was. Fortunately, I spent some time thinking about it myself and realized it wasn't a good idea.
Kind of funny how that works out.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I got a couple other things with the main reason for my call is I've thought of one solution that wouldn't fix the perking issue, but would certainly help. Driving around, I see quite a few old scales and rest areas that are just blocked off completely. I think that would be a state level, but why couldn't they just open it up and let truckers park there with no services?
Well, this is part of the problem. You can't do it without services. That place will be a pigsty within a week. You
Up in
have
Canada, we have them all over the place in those services.
Well, you have to have somebody clean them. I mean, at the very minimum, somebody's got to come in and haul away the trash because they are going to be a pigsty in a week, which means more government spending. Let me give one thing the government could do that would, I think, would probably solve this problem. Take away the restriction of having commercial properties on interstates. We do it in
but that just makes way too much sense.
We do in the toll roads, and it is, everybody loves it. You run the Ohio Turnpike, and their rest areas are better than most truck stops, and we allow it on a toll road, but we don't allow it on an interstate. And it's one of the groups in our industry that fights this all the time. NATSO, the National Association of Truck Stop Owners, they don't want to see this. I'm not sure why. I don't know why they wouldn't be the first ones in there bidding on those contracts.
So let me throw you something out there that my brother is engaged in the state of Ohio. So they actually brought this, I don't know if it was the Ohio General Assembly or whatever, to reopen some abandoned scale sites for truck parking. And they actually have. They've got 3 or 4 of them open. And they actually have outside waste services managing the lots. And it's kind of a pilot program that they really pushed for, my brother did. And it's doing very well. I think it's 4 now they've got open. They had 3 and they just opened another one. And they're doing quite well, and they're kind of easing into that idea of bringing in, outside services to manage the lots.
Well, let's also bring in some outside services with the revenue potential, so the taxpayers don't have to pay for it.
I have no doubt that's the direction that they're heading, but I think they're taking baby steps here on this,
which is fine.
So
I'm okay with that.
We'll see how it progresses, but I think you're right. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. All right.
They were letting you park at the old scale house in Charlotte on the northbound side of 85. And I stopped there a few times, but man, that place was trashed and now it's blocked off.
Well, that's what I mean. I understand that sounds like a great solution, but there is an expense there, and it is a taxpayer expense if the government does this. We are so far in debt in this country. I don't care if you believe that the government is good at doing things. They can't do it because they are out of money. And we have got to stop spending until we get the budget under control on all of this stuff. I know we think, well, we really need it and it's going to help us. But if everybody keeps saying we really need the government to fix this, this is where we end up with. There's a profit motive here, so we have to pay for all of this.
That's right.
Let the free market go in there and do it. It works. So I hope,
Joel,
you're right that, and I'm fine with them taking baby steps and doing it right. I would much rather see them take their time, learn as you go, and if that's the goal, I would be all for this.
Yeah, they're working on it. So I'll try and get some information when I get back to the yard on that, and next week I'll share it on air with what I find out where they're at.
All right, let's go to New Mexico. Ronald, welcome.
Hey, I've got a little anecdote to laugh at.
All right.
One quick question, which I'm hoping is a quick answer, and then the thing I actually want to discuss. My quick anecdote is we had our safety guy send us emails to all of us telling us that we needed to buy more fuel in California because we were getting bit by IFTA bills.
It can be cheaper to buy it in Florida. California. California, I meant.
There's a couple issues going on here. Fleets do sometimes need to manage their fuel this way, but the confusion comes in is that the drivers don't understand the cost structure and why the fleet. Now, there's 2 possibilities. There is a possibility that the fleet doesn't even understand the fuel tax and they're getting excited about something that doesn't really matter. That is a possibility.
That's
Yeah. Or the fleet
Yeah,
does
I sent him a
really
message.
understands
Hey,
fuel tax and wants to take advantage of the benefits of buying in the right state. It could be either one. Now, if I had the day they were telling you and all the other details about the routes, we would know whether they knew what they were talking about or not. It's one of the two.
And what they were actually paying per gallon.
Correct.
Yeah,
Right.
I-40.
With their
Well, I
discount.
have the app. I have the app for the NASDAQ app that shows what the prices are. So we're running.
That doesn't mean that's what your fleet's paying.
Correct.
No, that's exactly what my fleet's paying. I'm running the exact same thing that the fleet's.
They're using the NASDAQ card as well?
Yes.
Okay. Then you.
Oh, okay.
So,
right.
Yeah, that's why I have all of this stuff, is because that's what fleet is using. So yeah, it's essentially the I-40. I mean, we're going through California down to 58 across the I-40 and into Texas. So it's like I can clearly see what the prices are.
Yeah,
and
that's
I'm like,
what
yeah,
I
no,
said.
that doesn't make any sense.
If I had the data, I'd be able to figure
But
it out.
I don't want to spend a whole lot.
You have the
I don't want to
data.
spend a whole lot of time of that. I just thought it was funny.
Well, I want to go back to it for just a second. So you have the data I was asking about, and you understand this, and what you're telling me is that California was not the right place to buy fuel.
Correct.
Well, then
it was like 80 cents a gallon more on our route than stopping in Arizona.
This is so sad that even at a fleet level, they don't understand this. And if they're telling you to buy fuel in California and you're saying it's 80 cents more than what I could have gotten it over here, then they clearly don't know what they're doing, and they're trying to balance out their IFTA report, which is a huge mistake.
Yes. Yes, that's exactly what they were trying to do. And I tried to explain that to them. Like, no, you shouldn't be doing this. Look at the actual fuel prices. Take away the state tax. Look at the fuel price and buy it in the cheapest place. And I had a lot of people trying to argue with me, going, "No, what IFTA? And I'm like, "You're going to pay the same IFTA tax no matter where you buy the fuel."
How many?
Here or there. Yeah.
How many trucks does this fleet have?
So it's a split between owner operators and company drivers. I think he has 16 or 17 company trucks.
Okay, and he's not.
But he also doesn't run the fuel optimization program at all. He lets his drivers decide where they're going to buy fuel.
Well, wait a minute. You just said he was telling them to buy in California.
Yeah.
So which one
they
is
sent
it?
out a memo saying, please try and get more fuel in California.
Oh,
yes, advising.
Recommending. Okay.
Yes.
Not
yes.
mandating.
They didn't say you have to.
But, yeah. But this is sad.
No.
That at 16 trucks, I'll give you the number. I've run this number many times, and here's how I set up this example. Most people fuel when they need it, right? They run till they're just about out of fuel, and then they find a truck stop that's convenient, and they stop and buy it, right? I mean, that is the most common way people fuel their truck. So I ran a comparison like that. If all I do is just stop every time I need fuel, I don't think about what state I'm in, I don't do any fuel optimization, or I optimize every trip. And that's not always possible, but that's the scenario, so you understand how I set it up. It was north of $2,500 in most cases, the savings per year. Now multiply that by 16 trucks. In a 16 truck fleet, that is a lot of money.
Yeah, I can't believe that he doesn't have any fuel optimization. And this is selfish on my part too, because I'm like, no, dude, I want you to pay for it so that I have access to it.
Absolutely.
Me having to sit down and actually read through all of the stupid truck stops along. Okay, here's our route. What are the fuel prices actually doing?
Yeah, but we'll go back to what we talked about earlier. You start getting multiple trucks, and the headaches that come along with that, and the work it takes to keep drivers in 16 trucks and keep everybody trained. And so what happens is these other things just fall to the wayside. They don't understand them. They don't have time to go try to understand them. And as an industry, we are really inefficient because of stuff like this.
Yeah, that NASDAQ app you spoke of makes it pretty easy to do that.
Yeah, it does.
Because not only you can put in your route, and you can also decide on whether to buy it today or tomorrow based on the information they give you there.
Right.
Which sometimes is ridiculous because they'll be like, buy fuel, wait to buy fuel till tomorrow because it's 0.0000001 less. No.
Yeah.
My one question that I had was that I'm hoping is really quick is intake and exhaust manifolds on a new ISX Cummins. Do they make sense to change out to like the Pittsburgh Power ones, or not so much? It's like, is it worth it?
So there was a time on the ISX, both manifolds were worth changing out. I don't really remember what the issue was intake manifold, but there was some reason that you could improve that. The issue for me on exhaust manifolds today, I don't know why you would change an exhaust manifold on any engine today. We used to do it for less back pressure, better exhaust flow, because that frees up energy. But your exhaust system is only as good as your most restrictive point, which is the DPF. So I don't see where it helps to improve flow if we're still stuck with the restriction of a DPF. Joel, am I off on that?
Yes.
Oh, no, here's how I kind of look at all these different modifications. And I'm planning on doing a modification to a D11 just to play with this, so I know my thought process, or at least what I think is correct. So if you're going to do any type of modification, okay, let's say we're going to do a manifold, an intake, and exhaust. So show me how that impacts the power curve. What is the impact on the power curve? I, as a driver, don't give a damn about combustion efficiency. Combustion efficiency is not the same as operational efficiency. Never has been, never will be. It's important to gearheads, and it's important to EPA types.
Hey, Joel,
because
stop a second.
Combustion efficiency directly Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to make sure I'm understanding this right. Let's go back to pre-DPF trucks, and we can either build this, horrible exhaust system with the dual stacks in front of the sleeper where it's got to make 90-degree bends and come back, and that creates back pressure, but that's not really engine efficiency, is it? Or combustion efficiency? We're just
sure
trying.
Sure it is.
Well, it seems to me like
sure
we're wasting energy after the fact, after the combustion.
Well, it's going to impact it all the way around.
Here's the way I'm understanding
this.
There's no doubt. I want to make sure I'm right. We are using some of the engine's energy just to get the exhaust out of the pipes.
You're pushing it. Yeah, that's part of pumping losses. Yes.
Okay. So not necessarily combustion efficiency. We've already combusted the fuel. We did it as good as we could. Now, how do we use the energy from that? And I'd rather use it to...
here's how it impacts combustion efficiency. So if you have a very free-flowing exhaust that scavenges all the exhaust out of the cylinder before the stroke changes, you're going to improve combustion efficiency because there's going to be no leftover exhaust gases in that cylinder. It's going to get complete fresh air coming in.
So
that's how it would impact combustion efficiency.
So it does impact.
So a restrictive one would push
essentially
a little bit of exhaust in there.
Essentially, a restrictive exhaust is similar to EGR. It's going to leave a little bit of exhaust in the cylinder if it's not free flowing, and that will have an impact on your next combustion event because you have inert gas in there instead of oxygen that's going to burn.
So
it's going to impact your combustion efficiency.
I always believed, and we've shown it, and there's a formula for this. I'm pretty sure I got it from Detroit. There was a formula for measuring back pressure, and you could calculate the loss of efficiency. As back pressure went up, efficiency went down. So we always, that was something we paid attention to and worked on until the DPF came along.
Yes.
Then I just didn't understand the point of it anymore. It didn't make sense to try.
So, no, actually, it makes even more sense because, and this is something that at Ploger we really pay attention to, is the flow through the DPF. And we set targets or triggers to actually do force regens or cleanings that are more aggressive than what the factory recommends on the restriction in the DPF. So you're not wrong. You want to keep that clean for sure, and there's nothing that says you have to clean it at their recommended. I think they want to see like an inch or an inch and a quarter of restriction before they recommend pulling it to clean it. We're going to do it at 0.75.
Okay,
we're looking at the restriction in there, and we do see improved fuel efficiency and we can cost justify it at 0.75 versus 1.25.
Now let me go back, because that makes total sense to me. But again, I agree. The DPF is our point of restriction. And if we keep it as clean as we can, that makes sense to me. What doesn't make sense to me anymore is putting on a manifold to improve flow upstream. That doesn't seem to make any sense to me anymore.
At a cost of $2,000, by the way, just for the part.
Yeah, right. To me, it's very. I'm with you, Kevin. On it's very hard to get a return on investment on something like this. So show me how it impacts the power curve. And then once you show me the impact on the power curve with the gearing that I have, am I going to be able to leverage the benefit? Just because you put this on and it says you get a 5% increase in horsepower. Okay, where at? Is it at the front side of the curve? Is it the whole curve? Is it the back side of the curve? Where's this 5%? Maybe it's happening at extremely high RPM because it flows easier, right?
Right.
So maybe out at 2,600 RPM that we'll never see, they're seeing a 5% gain because it's getting better flow and we're not backing exhaust gases up into the engine, right? So at that point, it's worthless.
Well, so Ronald,
it may be good.
Gearing.
It may be good for a racer, but it's not good for on highway.
So Ronald, I think even no matter how many ways we look at it, there's several different issues brought up here. No, manifolds are not really on my list on modern engines to be messing with.
All right. I was just wondering whether I needed to do more research into it.
Yeah,
I don't think that it's worth my time.
I don't think so.
My big thing is about gear ratios, because I'm going to change the gear ratios in my truck. And I want to, I'll let you know what I'm thinking and then tell me if I'm just insane. I have, it's a 2023 International. It's got the Cummins X15. It's the Performance Series. I tried to turn it down. Cummins told me, yeah, we can't really do that. So it's stuck at 565, 2050 horsepower, unless I want to do a lot of extra work and research to find a program that would work. They can't just turn it up or down. So it's got 370s in it right now. It currently has 11 Rs. I'm going to switch that to 295s. My thought was I'm going to put 325s in it, because at 65 miles per hour, I want to be at 1,300 RPM. And it's got an 18-speed transmission too. At 17th gear, at 58 miles per hour, it's just under 14. It's like 1375. And I haul up to 118,000 pounds regularly. I'm hauling batteries, so I've got a hell of a lot of weight. I'm going up to 40,000 on my drive, 16,000 on my steer axle, and 60,000 on the trailer. So I want, and we're loading in California, so speed limit's 55 there anyway. And I've got the trailer I've got has small tires, so I'm running 58-ish miles per hour when I'm loaded. When I am empty, we need to get back quickly to do a reset of hours so that we can be ready to haul the next load. And these are very high paying loads. It makes sense to run the speed limit empty back. So that allows me to run 75 at 1,500 RPMs empty back. So I get the benefit of being in 17th gear at 0.86 overdrive instead of 0.73. I'm running 1375-ish at 58. And then when I'm empty, or if I say get a regular load, I can run exactly 65 at 1,300 RPMs for being on more or less flat. Do you have a better solution?
Joel, running one gear down in an 18 speed, he's going to build a lot of heat in that transmission, isn't he? Because you're turning a lot of parts.
Yeah, I mean, that obviously this is not an ideal setup period for a highway operation. It's just not. We're putting band-aids on everything that we do. The 565 2050, that is the performance version, and it doesn't hit peak until higher in the RPM range. And to take advantage of that, I think your thought process on the gearing is correct. Is this an emissions engine?
Yes, it's a 2023 X15.
Make sure you buy yourself 1,000 gallons of catalyst to run in this damn thing, because at those
I am
RPMs,
running the catalyst.
yeah, and make sure you do, because you are going to need it, because this thing is going to be problematic emission system if you don't. This is just not. There's no good. There's no good scenario any way you slice or dice it. What are you getting for fuel mileage right now?
The latest, I did the latest for the last month, the last 30 days, and I was sitting at 5.6.
That's what
that
I
was
figured.
round
You're
trip,
gonna be
loaded
into
at
fives.
100. Yeah, 5.6 round trip. That's loaded, 1,500 miles at 116,000 pounds running I-40, and then empty coming back at the speed limit. So I wish I could go a little slower, but
let me just put this into perspective and context, and I know you can't do this, but just as an example. So I work with a guy up in Canada. He runs loads of 118 and 140,000 pounds, and he's generally loaded out one way, comes back empty. They're Super Bs, and you split that 50-50, the 118 and the 140,000. He's coming back empty. Now this is the Volvo version of the heavy duty version of the iTorque. It's a 247, and he's actually running a 6x2 on a Super B. He's averaging 7.8, I believe was the last averages that he sent me. Almost 8 miles to the gallon, pulling weights. Your ceiling is his basement. So, lowering piston speed and stuff would have a significant impact. The problem, what you're starting with, we're just not going to be able to do that. And then we're fighting that 18-speed transmission as well. Now, I get it. These loads pay good, and you're obviously you're making money. You're going to probably be okay. I think you're in the neighborhood with the 325. I would probably maybe even look at 308. How much of a gain you're going to see out of this? You may go from mid fives to low sixes. It's not going to be stupendous, but it will be in terms of money savings on that. You're not going to be an 8 mile a gallon truck with the setup that you have, for sure. Potentially you could be with the right setup, but with this setup.
Okay, yeah, I was looking at if a little bit more efficiency for hauling the heavyweight and for
Sure.
and for overall versatility, because I don't always do these. Sometimes just doing regular 80,000 pounds. So, and the fact that I kind of need the ability to run the speed limit back, because right now with 370s in it at 65 miles per hour is just a hair over 1,500 RPM, and and if I need to go up to 75 on the average of coming back, just so that I can make sure I get the truck stop that I need to take my reset in. And some of the scheduling is actually that tight, not all of it, but some of it is. Then being able to actually keep the RPMs a little bit lower while running 75 would be nice. I don't like running 75 at 1610 RPM like I am now for 3 full days of driving.
Yeah, no,
so
I
it
hear
was
you.
like
I hear you.
I got the actual calculator to figure out this road speeds and RPMs and kind of the torque curve on that X15 and went, this seems to be the best option that I had, because I'm running 14, just under 14, 1375 RPM loaded, and being down at 17th, I thought would be a lot more efficient than trying to run 0.73 with that much weight, especially with all the grade change that we're running. No matter what, I have to pull Cascades, I have to pull up into Flagstaff, etc.
Yep, you're going to be doing a lot of shifting. It's just you're trying to make the best of a very bad situation here, and you're going to be putting a lot of Band-Aid type solutions on this truck. It will never be obviously fully optimized. You can make the situation somewhat better. If you really, really like the truck and you want to sink some money into it, myself personally, I would be looking at this going, I ain't spending time into this, because my starting point is crap. It just is for any type of efficiency. You're just not going to get it out of this thing. You if everything goes exactly right, you may gain a mile a gallon, which is nice, but it's it's not
Oh,
where a new
that's hella
modern.
significant when, oh, can I say that
Oh,
online?
it is.
It's very,
Yeah,
very
it is.
significant when you're going from
Yes.
5.5 to 6.5.
Yes.
True.
No,
Yeah.
you're not wrong, but I always see it as the potential of you could be getting 8 doing the duty
Correct.
cycle.
Right.
You know what I mean,
Right.
with the right truck. And so that's what I always kind of weigh it against. So it's probably worth the money to do this. It sounds like this freight is good to you. The rates are right and whatnot. And obviously, you bought the truck. You must like the truck for whatever reasons, like how it looks, like how it rides, pulls, whatever. And that's fine.
All of the
There's
above.
nothing
I like
wrong
how
with
it's
that.
set up inside.
Yeah.
I really like
Well,
this
there you
truck.
go. Yeah.
Absolutely. So go ahead and put the money into it. Do the re-ratio. Just don't have the expectation that, oh man, I re-ratioed this, I'm gonna get 9 miles a gallon. That ain't happening.
Oh, no. I
It's just
didn't have
not.
any
Yep.
expectation of that. I was
Good.
actually aiming
Good.
to get like a half mile per gallon up to
And
hopefully maybe.
that's what I would suspect you're gonna end up doing. You're gonna be in that half mile a gallon range.
Yeah,
Now,
and I just wanted to
understand.
run that by you guys to see if I
Yep.
had forgotten anything, or if
No.
maybe my thinking was off.
Just understand that your workload's going to go up as a driver. You will be shifting that truck more, and
Yeah,
you
that's
have
fine.
to understand that as long as you're okay with it. I would pull the trigger on it. So your workload will go up slightly. You're going to gain around probably a half, if you're lucky, 3/4, and that is significant. It'll show up on your bottom line, but my mind works as, well, why in the hell would I settle for 6 when I can get 8? But I get it. I get the situation
Yeah,
you're in, and I get what
I
you're
ran out of
describing, and I understand it.
I ran out of time when it came to this truck. I had a
Sure.
Kenworth T660 that ended up with oil in the coolant, and I had already put so much money into this thing. There was so many problems with the emission systems in that Kenworth. And I'm like, I am not putting any more money into this. I did not want to buy a
I
truck
get it.
when I did, and so it came down to, well, I'm starting to have issues with suspension bushing wear and stuff, and it's like that kind of weight. That truck was not designed to haul that kind of weight or to carry that kind of weight. This truck was, and that's why I ended up coming down on this truck, because it's got the full 12-inch, heavy duty frame rail in it. It's 16,000 steer, 46 rears, 18 speed, which, I mean, that's what it came with. So it was set up to actually do this, and it was the only one I could come up with. I was in talks to try and see about ordering a truck. I was going to. Kevin actually recommended. I talked to him once briefly before my truck died, and he's like, I recommend going and talking to Volvo. They make a really great heavy haul. And I was just trying to find a dealership that I could work with, and all that when my truck died. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to buy a truck right now, but I'm not putting any more money into this. And it was like, okay, well, these loads, even if it's inefficient, these loads still pay plenty of money to make it worthwhile. So my next one is I do want to actually sit down and spec it out and try and get it so that it will work much better, like get it as efficient as possible. But for this particular truck, for the next 3 years or so, I would really like to. I just want to try and get it as efficient as I can get this truck. And I do love the truck, and maybe it's just because I'm coming out of that teeny tiny inside truck. This thing is set up so nice inside. I'm actually quite impressed with the design, mostly, of the Internationals. I mean, the feeling is, it feels a bit cheaper because they don't cover some of their plastic with the nice touchy feely stuff. But it's like I look at it and I'm just been so much happier in this truck.
Good.
So I will. I do want to get a good plan going. I've been thinking about.
I hear you. Life catches you sometimes,
Yeah.
and the real world kind of has a habit of booting the best laid plans right in the ass at times. So I get you, but you're on the right track. I have no doubt, and I have no doubt when you get a chance, you get to a dealer and spec something out. If you get to that point, give me a shout, and I can walk you through some things if you want.
Yeah, I would really like to, to go through some options or what we can do.
Perfect.
Sure.
The only thing I'm leery of is that auto shift. I know that we're listening to you. It's like, yeah, it's really, really efficient. I've driven auto shifts before. Our company has some. I don't like them. Like I don't.
Kind
They
of auto
bug.
what kind of auto shifts have you drove?
And why didn't you like it?
Right. Why?
Because it did weird things, like skip shifting up to. It's like, okay, I can understand skip shifting up a bit, but not when you're going from 1800 RPM and you skip 4 gears and drop down to 600 RPM. Going down
your
long
mind at ease
grades.
here.
Okay.
So there are multiple different logics that you can load into these, and generally fleets load this kind of generic blah logic that doesn't do anything really well. It's kind of in between economy, in between balance. You're right, it kind of sucks. So like Volvo, they have a heavy haul logic that you would probably love because it's very aggressive. It does not skip shift. It will wind the piss out of the engine if you want it to. It reacts to the input of your foot on the fuel throttle. It's very, very good for guys that run heavier weights. They have what they call a gentle shift logic that I personally like, that it hits every gear, but it only will run up to about 1,000 or 1,100, and then it's going to catch the next gear. And it's very, very much focused on fuel efficiency. They have a balanced program where it will skip shift depending on what mode you have the transmission in. The new Volvo I shifts have 3 different modes. We have the EE Plus, we have E, we have Performance, and I can have ability as a driver, yes, to be able to put it in performance mode and have it be a drag race truck essentially. And then I can just reach over and hit EE mode and it turns into an economy truck. So there are a lot of options that most drivers are not aware of that these automated manual transmissions can do that will really make you very happy once you understand the capability of the transmission.
And to me, they're very there's not much training done on the automated manuals, and they're very it's only responding to the inputs that it's given and how the program's set up. And like Joel said, it can be set up so many different ways, but the message you're sending it primarily through your foot really affects how they operate.
Yeah, I was less than impressed with the way that I don't know if it's Eaton, the one that Detroit uses, and because our company uses Western
12 speed
for their company truck. So they have a couple of 5900s with the auto shifts in them, and I don't know how they're set up. I've one of those trucks a few times when my truck was in the shop. It was going to be in there for a little while, my old truck, which it was in so often in the shop. So I got to drive them around quite a bit, and I'm like, okay, if I'm a company driver and this is what you handed me, okay, but I would never buy that. It just irritated me constantly, the stuff that it was doing, going down a long grade that's like, say, 2%, where you just keep picking up speed. And I'm like, look, I just want the compression brake to turn on and just stay in the top gear, and compression brake will keep me at a consistent speed. And I try and do that.
You got to flip it into descent mode when you're doing that. And
see, I didn't even know it had a descent mode. I mean, I know it had like a creep or a hill starting, and I could only get it to go in like half the time. So like trying to start on a hill, half of the time I'm rolling back almost 5 feet before that thing will engage, and it was just frustrating. And I know I just did not like it. It was not a good experience.
Just for what it's worth on that, they have Smart Source on Freightliner, Star Source on the Western Star. It's the same thing. But get that app on your phone, or the people that are driving it, and if you get on that app and you put in the last 6 of the VIN number of the truck, it has the training for those components, exactly how to be used. And I have yet to find a driver trainer that knows how most of the features work in these trucks, and they end up being miserable because of it. And Joe, I'm the same thing. They're like, I didn't know that was there. Well, if you don't know it's there, you don't know what you don't know till you find out what you didn't know.
Right. One of the very common things that you see in Volvo, especially a fleet truck, is you look at the on-dash shifting interface, and all of the buttons are blacked out. You know, they only give you just, you know, forward and reverse, and that's it. You know, and there are so many more other options. I can drive my truck just like a manual if I want to, and I do on occasion. You know, I like bumping through the gears, and it is fantastic. You have complete manual control over everything, and you bump through the gears exactly like you would a regular manual transmission. And most people are shocked to hear that that's possible.
Yeah, that's what I ended up doing with ours.
And you never miss a gear.
Right. Yeah. No. And so there. I guess the bottom line is there's a whole lot of capability available now as far as the speed of the shift, and that's what some people really will get up on. The latest generation automated manuals are much faster, and the new iShift specifically here 30% faster than what just the last generation did. So the new body style truck, and this is how we can drag race a 216 rear axle ratio versus 247, because the shifts are so much faster. And let me tell you, it's eye opening how fast this damn thing. You will never, as a human being, be able to bump the gears as fast as this thing. The only way to get them quicker is to go to a dual clutch, and that just adds a lot of weight and cost. So
that's right.
Pretty phenomenal how fast the very latest generation iShift can get through the gears.
Well, and we'll have about 3-ish years of testing and refinement and stuff before I'm ready to order a new truck. But I am pretty sure I'm going to sit down and actually spec out and order the trucks, because, you know, looking through what's just available on the used market at the moment, or even brand new trucks, I was looking at a couple of brand new ones too. And I'm like, I need something that can handle and will stand up to, you know, putting up to 46,000 pounds on the drives, you know, 16 at least 1,000 pounds on the steer axle. You know, I'm putting that much weight on it, and it's like I want something that's actually going to last. I don't want to be blowing out, you know, wheel seals and bushings and, you know, metal fatigue on the frame or frame components. Like I don't want to run into that, because the last thing you want to do is have something like that break when you're hauling, you know, an 84,000 pound battery, lithium battery, and you know, you wreck. That's a really bad day. So I was kind of stunted in what I could actually get, and I'm like, well, I think this is the best option that I have currently of the poor options that are available.
Hey,
and
you know,
I was
Ronald,
trying to order one.
Hey, Ronald, this is no different than the story I was telling about that truck I bought in 05. I ended up the worst truck I ever owned, and there was nothing I could have done about it. I was trying to get that last non-emission engine, and it didn't work out, and I ended up with an entire drivetrain that didn't order, and the truck was a disaster. Sometimes, no matter how hard you try, that kind of stuff just happens. So I think you're on the right track this time. We have got to move along. The calls just keep coming in. Let's go to Arkansas. Tom, welcome.
Yeah, good morning, gentlemen. Henry, you were absolutely, that was a great analogy about the drill bits. I saw a guy on YouTube last night folding titanium steel into twist Damascus, and that drill bit that he was using anyway. It was just a great analogy. I think Tony needs to run 2 ELDs. That might be the solution to his problem. Henry, on this Freightliner that I'm driving, I've got 2 modes. I've got creep mode on or off, and even the E-Coast, because it's a Penske rental. The E-Coast is unavailable, not available. So if anybody's running the Freightliner from Penske, they don't give you a whole lot of options on the transmission settings. You know what I mean? So which is very frustrating.
Even still on that, what I would do is get that Smart Source app and find out what all you do have, because if you put in that VIN number, it will be the way they ordered that truck. So you're not going to change it
from Freightliner.
Yep. Yes, Freightliner Smart Source app.
Okay. I'll get it.
And then you click on the menu, then you click on training, and then it'll have training by VIN number. Put in the last 6 of the VIN, and you're off and running. That being said, for some reason, the videos are loading slow, so be patient with it. But learn features like descent control and all that stuff, and it's amazing how many things that are in there that people don't even know are there.
Right. Certainly can't hurt, even if I don't have that option. Someday maybe I will. Hey, you were talking to.
Well, no, hey, hold on. If you switch trucks, do it again, because the way they set that up, it's for that VIN number of that truck the way it was ordered.
Oh, I understand. Yeah, no, I understand. No, I don't. This is the same truck I've had for 240,000 miles.
Yeah, it won't give you any information on a feature that's not in that one. Like if you put in my VIN number, it'll give different training stuff than it will for yours.
10 for it. Gotcha. Good. So you were talking to Dave was talking yesterday. I tried to call yesterday. I wondered if he was going to get the joke, because he said he was a PGA golf pro to start with. Before he started this thing, and I was going to see if he ever ask him if he ever saw Arnold Palmer naked. I wondered if he was going to, because Trump said Arnold Palmer was hung like a horse, and the left went absolutely bonkers over. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they did.
So yeah, maybe next time. You got to get him on a day that you don't have just an hour. But now.
It's to the point now where, I think everybody knows how I felt about Trump in the beginning and where I am now. And it is just incredible what comes out of his mouth sometimes, I swear.
I enjoyed the McDonald's video.
Oh, the McDonald's video
God,
was
they
awesome.
loved it.
Yeah.
Oh, my God, they loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what was better? You know what was better than the McDonald's video itself? That was awesome. But what was better was immediately people on social media were outraged that they discovered it was fake. But it was arranged, and they had to screen people. And did they really think he was going to go through the employment process and get hired by a McDonald's and just show up for work one day? Of course it was staged.
Secret Service and everything would have went right along with that. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, the guy.
I thought it was funny when he gave the CBS people and stuff free fries out window.
Yeah.
Yeah, how somebody didn't have him sign the McDonald's bag? That would have went. That would have went for a lot of money on eBay or whatever. Alex Jones is talking about.
That person working the fries with him will never forget that.
That's for sure.
No, and then, at least everybody in that McDonald's is going to vote for him. I don't know how much they can, they're gonna cheat, like we all know. But we'll see how this next 10 days, 11 days, whatever works out. This is going to be crazy. The reason I called the accident. So Dave was talking about the accidents, and now we were all out here. Henry, Joel, Alex, we're all out here during COVID and after COVID. And we know what happened, that there was absolutely no cop pulling anybody over for damn near 3 years. And it wasn't until just recently, like the last 3 months maybe, and I they call it the George Floyd effect, that I've seen Highway Patrol out. California was real bad the other day. They had them every couple feet, and the I-40 coming through Texas had them every quarter mile. It was nutty. But so they weren't pulling anybody over, and everybody was driving like idiots. So that didn't help any at all. But on top of that, we have a lot of immigrants that are driving now, and it's more of a cultural thing. Seeing the videos of how they drive in around those circles in India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, where it's a different mindset, And so if Joel, for instance, how many times, if you go to pass anybody, which you probably rarely do, but how many times do you get somebody literally 6 feet off of your bumper when you're just driving regular, trying to that comes flying at 80 miles an hour behind you, and he decides that 6 feet off your bumper is gonna somehow get you to get out of his way faster.
Right, do something different.
Hey, I'm gonna.
Yeah, I mean, it happens.
Hey, Joel.
Yeah,
Joel. I'm gonna throw a statistic in here. You talked about, of course the numbers have to go up. We have more vehicles, more miles traveled, all that. That's absolutely true. The miles traveled have gone way up. But in trucking, our accidents and deaths have gone up. So if the only explanation is all these extra vehicles and miles, why is it that in 1980, total highway deaths, we're not trying to separate trucks, cars, nothing, just 1980 total highway deaths, 51,000. 2022, 42,000. Huge improvement, but not in trucking.
Well, there was you got airbags. You had a lot fewer people on the roads in what you say 2022.
Well, it doesn't matter. I can go to 2019, and the statistics are even. Then it was only 36,000. Something went so. So if you look at this pattern, it was coming down. As a general pattern, it comes down every year. And then, of course, it's kind of like the stock market. Then it went up a little bit, but it has been coming down consistently for a couple of decades until 2020. 2020. So in 2018, we're at 36,000, not 50. 2019, 36,000. 2020, 38,000, a little bump up. But then all of a sudden in 2021, 43,000. It's
I got a theory on it, Kevin, and especially being I've been looking at getting a new vehicle. Everything's about the infotainment and the connectivity of the car. And no, use the windows and drive the car. And I think people are just too tied up in all these systems of what they're doing there besides driving the car. That used to be the entertainment. You got to drive the car.
Well, you know how a lot of people want to complain about the automatic braking systems and all these safety features, and I don't like it because it goes off and it has false positives. My point is, if you're putting all this infotainment in the vehicle, you better put in these safety systems. Somebody's got to drive the car, and the people aren't doing it.
I mean, most every new car I look at, the whole first page of whatever you're looking at online is about the infotainment. I'm like, I want to hear about the engine, or
just looking at the
everybody,
numbers.
You've got everybody on their phone also. That same guy that hit off your bumper going 80 mile an hour trying to get you out of the way is also texting at the same time.
All right, I'm going to
Here's the big thing to take away from these numbers, though, just really quick. So we're seeing this drop from 1980. Speeds are increasing. Cars are getting faster. More miles run. More cars on the road. This just tells you how damn good that technology is.
I agree.
Because
I agree with that.
I mean, so anybody that makes the claim that they're dangerous and they don't work, they're just full of shit.
No, I
Numbers
agree.
tell you that they don't. Yeah, they don't know what they're talking about.
And like
they
I
work.
said, if you are going to put all of these distractions in that vehicle, then you better put these safety systems in.
And you know what I'll add to this, to what I'm seeing, call it an accident. I see today as I'm driving throughout my day, very few accidents anymore, but I see a lot of wrecks and crashes. I think wrecks and crashes are on the uptick. But accidents, it's rare to see an accident anymore.
Well,
you're right.
I'll throw out I mean, we can look at why did this jump up all of a sudden in 2021. Let's throw out another potential factor. I'm just speculating here. Maybe it's 20 million immigrants that don't know how to drive.
Well,
Could be.
there's something, I don't want this to be a racist thing or whatever.
I'm not making it
because
racist.
it's
I don't
not,
care if
because
they're
it's not.
I don't care if they're of white European descent. If they're coming into our country illegally, it's a problem. It has nothing to do with race for me.
Facts are never.
I don't think that's where the
Facts are
crashes
facts.
are coming from. People are driving crazy anymore, of all kinds.
But it's a cultural thing from a lot of immigrants drove like that where they're from. And
I just realized something.
Thing gets learned to you when you're 16, 17 years old when you first learn how to drive. And it just becomes habit that this is the way you're used to doing it,
You know what else I think happened, Kevin?
What?
The children, like when we grew up, you watched your parents drive. And you were picking up tips the whole time, whether you're 5, 6 years old. Now the kids are being entertained in the car, and they're not observing their parents driving anymore. In some cases, that's a good thing. But
here was my experience
their
driving. At 14, I was the one driving home, and my parents were in the back seat drunk.
Yeah.
That's a true story. It happened once.
Yeah. Hey, I have one other idea. So you're talking about the rest areas and whatnot. What happens if you lease spaces to like the lunch trucks to the old way stations that are closed down? If you lease spaces to lunch trucks for that particular area, I think that might even be a good business model for a private company.
That's my point, that we have this government land along highways that if we allow commercial use of it, things will improve, but that's the law that has to change. Under today's law, you can't do that. That's my problem. That's all I want the government to do. Don't do anything. Just get the hell out of our way. It's a regulation that's stopping us from doing what would work. Get rid of the regulation.
Joel, we needed an association for that, right?
There you go.
Yeah. All right.
There you go.
What happened to Alec?
He probably got in an area without signal.
Oh, see, I was going to say that this crash death thing is really interesting. There's so many confounding factors in all of these numbers. We need somebody like Alec to dig into this and straighten it all out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Pull it apart.
I always like it, Kevin. I always like it when I dig into that and see what the crash rate per mile traveled was. And I think it was like 1975 was like the very worst, somewhere back in there.
Let me look, because that's actually, I have vehicle miles traveled. And in 1975, let's look real quick. 1975.
It was somewhere back there in the mid 70s.
What, 1.3 million vehicle miles traveled? No, it might be bigger than that even. That might be billion. They show it in thousands, and then I have to do the math. But we'll call it 1.3 with.
It's per 100 million. It's per 100 million.
Yeah, with 44,000 deaths. And then if we compare that today, instead of 1.3, we're at 3.1. That's a huge increase in miles traveled.
Huge.
And we're
huge.
At 42,000. So we still haven't gotten back to how bad we were in 1975. But the problem is and I'll correlate this with something else. This pattern follows the exact same pattern of life expectancy. Our life expectancy went up every year, year after year after year for decades until a couple of years ago, and it started going down. Now people are dying earlier, and we're killing more people on the highway. Something went wrong to interrupt a pattern that had been going on for 3 or 4 decades.
What would be interesting to see how it correlates to specific economic circumstances. What was the unemployment rate? How was the rate of inflation? To tie that all together, because if you're unemployed and inflation's high, and you just don't give a damn
Yeah.
anymore. You just
Yeah.
don't give a damn, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
you probably engage in more risky behavior. So interesting for sure.
I still remember during COVID, everybody kept thanking us for doing our job, and it was probably the most pleasurable.
Yeah.
That it was easy. I mean, there was people complaining that you couldn't get to a restaurant. It's like, yeah, but I'll take food, and I have no rush hour anymore.
Yeah.
Remember blowing right through DC right at rush hour and never skipping a beat. I was like, wow, this is cool.
I know. Hey, let's
Nice.
let's go to Mississippi. Matt, welcome.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone.
Good
Been
morning.
so long, I
Still for
forgot
me.
what I was even calling about.
That's right.
Matt, you've only been on hold for an hour and 20 minutes. Come on.
Yeah. So one I wanted to comment on was the IFTA, and you guys know I've put extra fuel tanks on my trailer, and because I'm a numbers geek.
Yeah.
So when I was running every week, I figured I was saving $1,000 a month.
Wow.
On my fuel purchasing.
Yeah, I was being conservative
Now,
when I,
that's probably cut in half.
Yeah, when I did it at 3,500 somewhere around there a year, I was being pretty conservative. There's a lot of savings that can be generated like that.
It's funny on that, Kevin. I don't look at it as a savings anymore. I just look at that's the way I should be doing it.
Well, that's true. You're right. Yeah. Yeah. It's not really that we're generating savings. It's everybody else just wasting money.
Exactly.
There you go.
And yeah, like you were saying, there's California, there's actually a couple of factors you need to figure in. And Joel, you would probably buy most of your fuel in California just because you pay attention to cetane.
Mm-hmm.
One reason California fuel can be more expensive is it's a higher quality fuel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, California has a ridiculous number of formulations for fuel. And that's one of the reasons it drives the cost of all of it up, because they have so many different formulations.
Yep.
How many states have the different formulations? I know Texas has that part that requires a higher cetane from like a triangle around Houston, San Antonio, and Dallas.
I think it's pretty common, but California is just the worst.
Yeah, I know there's the whole ethanol blend requirements that vary state to state too, and so it's very hard to compare fuel across the state line anymore as far as the quality of fuel.
Right.
But so Tony, which I can pick on him because he's got my phone number and he can call and say anything he wants to me. He is a very hard person to know when he's being serious or when he's joking.
It's almost impossible. I assume that he's always joking.
I used to think that too, but then he's dead serious about a couple of his questions. So.
I know. Either that or he's just really good at acting. One of the two.
Yep. So, I got some good news I missed about the second half hour of the show. I pulled into the Mississippi Way Station and they were sitting in there, so I went in and asked if they wanted to do an inspection today.
Did you really?
And thankfully they agreed.
Oh, nice.
Because
nice.
All of my inspections had fallen off my record, so I actually just this morning was calling on a load for Monday to get out of Fargo, and yeah, they wouldn't load me because it's, a one and done type deal. Setting up with a new broker, they don't see an inspection, they can't work with me.
I see you got a gold star on your inspection too.
Well, I was kind of planning on
it. you mean even though they technically could write a brand new truck out of service like we hear all the time, they don't do that, you mean? They actually just did a good inspection?
Well, yeah, he didn't measure brakes, but we all the walk around, open the hood, check the steering, but and of course I don't say nothing until afterwards, but I kind of explained to them the issue with getting loads and the brokers. I says, and I'm out here running. I used to run every week, and I came right to that weigh station every week, but for some reason, none of you guys ever pull me around back. Do I need to come in here with something dragging under my truck or what? He laughed about that. But
try piling a bunch of McDonald's bags up on the dash. See if that helps.
Yeah.
There you go.
So yesterday I was going to call with David Owen on. You guys were talking about the efficiency between owner-operators and fleets and how the numbers change so much. And I haven't called and talked about my numbers for a while because I don't want to make anybody feel bad if I'm bragging when, the market really isn't that good.
I look at
my numbers are down like
as,
everybody.
as encouragement. Here's what's possible if you get off your ass and go work for it.
So my September numbers, everybody could feel sorry for me in September, I guess.
Boy, they should. What the hell happened?
Well, and it's the way with cash accounting, how it falls every month. And
got it.
My direct shipper went 60 days without paying anybody. And then now in October, I've already gotten paid for 6 weeks worth of work. So
got it.
The numbers they just get goofy as that happens.
Right.
And that's not uncommon. They've been doing that for years.
Yeah.
They pay every week, but what week they're paying, you never know.
Right.
Sometimes it'll get caught up and they give me a check every week. Sometimes I'll wait 3 weeks and then get 3 checks. And sometimes I'll wait 2 months and get 4 checks or 6.
So September is just awful.
Gross revenue per mile.
Yeah. Oh my God.
82 cents a mile.
Yeah. Now let me make a comparison here real quick. And then you can go back and explain the numbers because I looked at this real quick. 82 cents a mile gross revenue. Gross revenue. Now, Joel Henry, listen to where he is for the year. That was September. Gross revenue, 82 cents a mile. If we look at his year, January through September, his profit per mile is $1.80. That's a hell of a number.
Gotcha.
Talk about being able to beat the pants off the big carriers all day long. They couldn't hope for this in their wildest dreams.
Oh, I was just involved in looking at a fleet's numbers, and I was shocked. And they got good equipment. It's not being used right, but their fuel mileage was at 6.6 miles to the gallon, and they were thrilled because they were up from 6.4.
This is the only industry I know that people get excited for being less than average. They're not even average at that number, and they're excited about it. How awful is that?
Yeah, and they have over 1,000 trucks.
Oh, it becomes mind-boggling if we were to do the math on how wasteful we are in this industry.
Oh, yeah. It's unbelievable.
Either one of you guys guess what my profit was per mile for September with 82 cents gross?
Hard to say.
It
30? I don't know.
It should be 0. I mean, it should be negative.
I would assume the average out here you'd be operating in the red.
Right.
I still squeezed
sure.
out 20 cents net.
Yeah. Yeah,
Nice.
on 82 cents.
Nice.
Yeah, I know that's efficiency. Yeah.
And that's
the
whole name of the game.
This is what the majority of people they can't fathom. They're just all about the big rate, the big rate, the big rate. That's all they think about. That big rate, it's great when you can get it. I'm not opposed to anybody getting a better rate.
Right.
But people automatically think if you're concerned about expenses, you automatically aren't getting paid enough. Well, come on, really? Really? That's how we're going to think.
Hey,
You know, I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous.
Joel, I don't know if you heard the call. I had a call earlier this week from Melanie. Shout out to Melanie, owner operator, runs her truck herself. She's out. She's still in business, still doing pretty well at the bottom of the market, but she, Vic and Sarah, met her on the road and talked to her and said, "Hey, have you ever heard this guy on the radio?" And he talks about efficiency, and so she called. She was wide open to ideas. When I talked about slowing, when I went through the formulation on slowing down, slow down 1 mile per hour, you pick up 1/10 of a mile per gallon. In today's world, it's about $1,000 a year. Slow down 10 miles per hour. When I went through that, zero pushback. She was so excited that was possible.
Nice.
And then when I started talking about, that's just one thing. We can lower your maintenance cost. We could lower your tax cost. This is what we do. She was over the top excited because nobody had ever shown her this and she didn't realize it. But once she did, she saw all the potential. There was no pushback at all.
Sure. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, that was encouraging.
Nice. Yeah, you don't run into that very often. Normally, they want to fight you on every little point and come up with every little frickin' scenario that they can. Well, it won't work because of this, that, or this. And,
Right.
Okay, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
She called.
My favorite one is it's not how my grandfather did it.
Oh yeah, there's a good one.
Yep.
Like, what were you going to say, Matt?
I said she called in yesterday to Mike Beckett,
did she?
realizing exactly, because she just heard the show, so she didn't know what all Mike Beckett did. And she says, "Well, I got maintenance questions," and Mike's, "Well, that's fine. We'll handle that." She starts asking about DPFs and regens, and Mike's like, "I can't help with that."
Yeah, that's Tuesday's show. Yeah, or Fridays.
Yep.
You call on Fridays too with that one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like I say, she seems open and gonna ask more questions, and
that's awesome.
That's encouraging to.
It really is.
Always hear, people opening their minds to learn new things.
Yeah, somebody that all you have to do is show them and they get. She's going to be successful because now she'll keep looking. She's curious. She gets it. You just know she's going to be successful.
For sure. For sure. Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, it was awesome. All right, Matt. Hey, sorry. I think. Oh no, I didn't hit the button. Go ahead.
Yep. Oh, you can move along. I was just going to point out then, the total profit for the year. Might not happen in October here, but in November, I'm probably going to break 200,000
profit
again this year, and I would have never guessed that.
Profit on one truck with one driver. This isn't even a team. That's why I bring up these numbers all the time. But the other thing people don't get, Joel and both of you guys will appreciate this about fuel mileage. We just talked about this the other day when I asked you, Joel, Henry, you weren't here, but I asked Joel, in his lifetime, how much brain power and time has been dedicated to thinking about fuel mileage?
Oh my God.
Yeah, I'll say for all four of us on this call right now, that is a lot of time and effort has been put into this to get you guys where you are. It's the same thing with Matt, and it goes way beyond fuel mileage. It's fuel mileage, it's maintenance, it's the equipment cost, it's the customer service. The Matt does work on the revenue side as well. But these numbers, and I know the thought, oh, well, you just got lucky or you whatever. No, this is the potential in this industry when you do it right. But it takes years. Nobody would ever do this in 1 year. It's not gonna happen. I don't care how good you are. I don't care how hard you try. You're never going to get to this place in 1 year. It will take you years, but why not keep working to improve like that?
You mean it isn't just luck? That's what I always hear about the luck part of it.
Yeah, the funny thing about that, because people always told me I was lucky, but I have a pretty direct correlation between the harder I work, the luckier I get.
That's right.
Well, you can only accept them lucky situations if you're prepared for them.
That's another good one. That's right.
The
Luck
opportunity is there all the time.
Luck
but
is
if
what
you can't
happens.
act on it,
Yep. Luck is what happens.
Luck is where preparation meets opportunity.
And opportunity always exists. So all that tells us is get prepared and you'll be successful. It really is that easy or simple. It's not easy. It's simple.
Speaking of opportunities, Kevin, have you looked into that Eddie Rickenbacker book?
I have not. I
am rereading it right now, and
I had
I left it at home on purpose because I can't put it down once I start reading it.
Yeah, I had a moment of panic the other day. I talk all the time about how many books I have on my Kindle that I haven't gotten to yet, and summertime's a bad time for me. Right now, I'm actually reading a lot because the weather's already turned. But I had a moment of panic. I sorted my Kindle by unread, and it said I had over 900 books. And I'm like, wait a minute, that can't be right. I know I have a lot, but it can't be 900. What happens sometimes is a book ends and then there's some additional material, like they might do a preview chapter of their next book or the bibliography. And on a Kindle, if you don't go to the last page of the book, it still shows as unread. So I really don't have 900. I have a lot, but not 900.
Well, if you didn't read the book all the way to the end, did you really read it?
Well, no, I mentioned this. There's a reason when an author puts that teaser chapter at the end for their next book, I absolutely will not read it, because here's what happens. I have a hard time. Obviously I have over 900 books on my Kindle. I don't know how many total books are on there, but 900 that it claims I haven't even read yet. The problem for me, I can't remember what books I've read and what I haven't. And if I read that chapter as a teaser, and then I'm looking at that book 6 months from now, I'll think I already read it.
Mm-hmm.
So I will not read those. And who in their right mind is going to read the bibliography of 40 pages? I'm not. I like to read, but I'm not a masochist. Holy cow.
Not that much, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So it's
That's funny.
Yeah, it's just and I'm gonna, what I'll do is, now that I know that's how it works, when I end a book, there is a way to just go into the menu and jump directly to the last page. So when I'm done reading from now on, I'll just jump to the last page. Then it'll show that it's been read, and I can try to sort out all these books that I have to get to. All right, Matt, we are going to move along, and it looks like I should probably turn off the phone lines if we want to get out of here at 11 o'clock today, because people keep calling and bugging us. Bob, what the hell do you want now?
I just was going to tell you about one of my Volvos I got. I'd been having some issues with it. It started with an injector went out, replaced that, and then we had a turbo go out, and then a wiring harness on the turbo that turned out to be a pin in the turbo, and these are all have to be getting towed in, and just lots of problems. And then the other day, it blew a water line off, and I had the guy go get some water, got it filled up, got the radiator hose back on, and it wouldn't start. And he put 12 gallons of water in it. And anyways, long story short, he looked at the oil, and it was about 4 inches over on oil. And turns out like we split a liner somehow or another. And I would have told you before all this happened, these were the best trucks. I mean, I have not had, one bad thing to say about it. Have you ever had one do this? And do you think they could be connected to the first thing of putting the injector in properly, or what do you guys think?
What year is the truck?
It's a 21. They call it a 22, but it's a 21. Actually, I got it in June of 21.
Yeah, you could have an injector that was bad and fill that piston up full of fuel, and you go to turn it over and crack the liner, you hydrolock it hard enough, I suppose.
Well, the injector happened first. It happened about a month ago, and then somewhere in that month, the turbo, they decided it was a turbo that was having a problem. Then they had a whole bunch of turbo issues, and so they replaced the harness, and that wasn't still it. They had to go in and change the pins. I guess something got messed up with changing the turbo, and then it blew the water line off, and then it was catastrophic.
VGT or TC?
It's not the compound. Which one is that?
Okay, VGT. Yeah, gotcha. You know, there are things like this happen from time to time, and it's not specific to any brand.
No.
You know, one of the engines that's probably considered bulletproof by most people, an N14, and probably 99% of the people will tell you that engine is absolutely bulletproof. That was one of the most problematic engines I ever owned. Now, would I go out and say N14s are junk? No, I just happened to get one that had a whole lot of problems with it. It happens. It does seem kind of unusual that you had injector and turbo issues, and then you come up with a cracked liner. Be interesting to know a little what was going on there, especially on a 20. You know, I could see it if the thing had a cajillion miles on. How many miles were on it?
330,000.
Wow, that's unusual. Very unusual.
And that's my question. Do you think it was maybe the injector was in improperly, and that could have caused this, or no?
I doubt it. Hard to say, though. I mean, anything is possible without, seeing everything that happened and having it right in front of me. It's really difficult to say. I doubt that the injector installation would have an issue. When it was turbo issues, did you overboost the hell out of the engine at any point?
No, it would never make boost. That was the problem with the turbo.
Okay,
After the turbo, I had it towed to a shop. He said it wouldn't make boost. And so we had it towed to the shop in Odessa, Texas. They put a turbo. They thought it was a turbo, put that on there, and it would never make over like 15 pounds of boost. I said, let's get it home. We'll get it to our home dealership. And they decided that it was a wiring harness or something. And then it turned out to be one of the pins was damaged in the wiring harness, I guess. And they fixed that. And then we got our boost back. And then this, thing happened.
So you blowing a water line off it or a coolant line kind of tells me it was building pressure in there. That's interesting. You didn't overheat this engine at all?
No. He said it threw every bell and whistle on that thing and pretty much shut him down immediately. And we had a service truck come out, put the water back in, and the guy's like, man, I've already put 12 gallons of water in it, and it's going somewhere. And it's not going out on the ground, basically. And so we had to check the oil and
sometimes shit just happens. You get a bad liner, and there's no explanation, no rhyme, no reason for it. But it happens. It's unfortunate when it does,
I think Volvo. Everything I've done with those trucks have been great, and I like almost zero emission problems. I've had a couple other small things happen to them, but I mean, real easy. And this is just this just happened. I mean, over this month, and I was just wondering if you thought, if you guys would ever think that the injector, because they haven't quite told me if it was the cylinder that the injector was put into. I haven't found that out yet, but I mean, they do say that. They
haven't. Oh, they do have the head off, but I was gonna say it didn't drop a valve or anything, did it?
Well, it did mess up a valve. Something about the valve, and they thought it was a liner as well. So
okay, so if it dropped the valve, there's a potential if a piece of that valve went in there, it could have cracked that liner.
Or could it be like when the turbo went out, a piece of the turbo, could it have gotten back into the motor somehow?
Yes, there's a possibility if they didn't account for all the pieces parts of the turbo. If they just took it off and there were missing pieces, absolutely that could have went up in there, and that could have taken the valve and the liner. Absolutely could have. That's why it's so hard to say, without seeing all the pieces parts and what's going on here to say exactly what happened. All I can tell you is that if the valve and the liner in the same cylinder are bad, it wouldn't surprise me if you had a turbo failure and a piece of that turbo went through there.
Okay. Well, that's what we're going through and stuff. But I just was curious about what your thoughts were and stuff. So that's about.
Yeah, it's kind of what it sounded like.
Okay. No, that's cool. I appreciate your time and have a good day.
All right.
Sure.
Thanks for the call. Let's go to Texas. Joseph, welcome. Joseph? Anybody there?
Oh, sorry about that.
Oh, there you
Can
are.
you guys hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry about that. My apologies. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I'm a big fan of what you guys are doing, and if I had listened to you guys back in the day, I wouldn't have lost my business because I was not focusing on expenses at all, and it creeped up on me, and I wound up. That's a long story. But the reason for my call, Kevin, you and David Owen were discussing pay models, and I wanted to tell you about how I'm paid with the company I'm working with.
Okay.
I'm paid by the hour, and anything over 40 hours is obviously overtime.
Wow.
We use 2 different apps. So our trucks are at a gate. It's a chemical company, and it's not really a trucking company. We're a chemical company, and it's a private fleet.
Yeah, you're a private carrier, which there's no doubt private carriers have an advantage when it comes to paying their drivers. That's just the reality of it. And I'm shocked that more drivers don't seek out private carrier jobs. They're some of the best in the industry. Pay, conditions, just about everything about them.
I love the way I love the way that they structure it. So when we come in the gate in the morning, I clock in on my timesheet app. It's called Paylocity. And then I start my pre-trip, and I have a different app for my hours of service. We use Samsara.
Okay.
And I'm doing regional work. So like last night, for instance, I was in northern Oklahoma, and I did my post trip and everything. And then when I logged to go into the sleeper berth, I clock out. And if there's like a 10-minute or a 10% variance in there, they get curious about it. So you can't just, do your post trip and then clock out 3 hours later. They keep an eye on stuff like that. But,
right.
Any breakdown time, any loading, unloading, when you clock in, you're on the clock, and we're paid the whole time we're there. So we're not really concerned about driving fast or anything like that. And we have appointments we have to make, and we have to get there. But like yesterday was a good example. I got stuck in an accident that happened in Oklahoma, and I was there for over an hour, and I went into the sleeper berth to take a little break, and I wasn't really worried about it because I knew that I was on the clock the whole time. And I wish more companies would do things like that.
Here's a project I would love to see. People don't realize how expensive projects like this can get, but if we dig into the data, and I'm assuming we could get enough data to make this relevant, it would be very interesting to do a comparison of fleets, and there aren't that many of them, but we could find them. Here's one: fleets that pay by the hour, or at least compensate drivers for all of their time, whether it's a hybrid mileage. But I like this one even better: pure hourly. I would like to see 2 sticks on fleets paying by the hour versus fleets paying by the mile. And the 2 things I want to see: fuel mileage and accidents.
That makes sense. They're pretty strict on accidents with us and any kind of mistakes because we're dealing with hazardous chemicals. And course, we get, there's a quarterly safety bonus if we don't have any spills or anything like that. And
Yeah.
we get no rush. So when we're unloading, I mean, if it takes me 2 hours to offload that trailer, I'm in no big hurry because I know, I'm being paid by that. I'm not mentally thinking I've got to hurry up. I've got to hurry up. I've got to go. I can afford to take my time and make all the connections right, check my pressures, check my tanks, make sure everything's good. And if I get delayed, I'm not sweating it.
Hey, have you ever?
Kevin,
Go ahead, Joel.
I believe there was a study in Europe a decade ago or longer, because I believe that some of the European countries have actually outlawed pay by the mile based on a study like you're talking about. And I think that's in existence, and I'll get a hold of some of my Scandinavian contacts and see if that's
I'd
that's
love
available.
to see it, and then I'd love to see it from the U.S. There are differences, and I get it, but I still think we're going to see a pretty clear pattern. Has anybody ever heard one of the Navy SEAL mottos? Because when I hear Joseph talking about this fueling, being safe, not being in a rush, has anybody ever heard that this is a Navy SEAL motto? Slow is smooth, and smooth is fast.
There you go.
And you know what that means? That means the more you rush, the longer it takes you to do things. It seems so contrarian, so backwards, but it's not. And the SEALs get this. Slow is smooth, and smooth is fast.
So it goes right back to the children's story of the hare and the tortoise, right?
That's right.
Same thing.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
Teaching you the exact same thing, and they knew it how long ago? I mean, this is common knowledge, but we disregard it.
If we go back to the fables and the things we were taught, from kindergarten to about 3rd or 4th grade, there was a time when you and I grew up, Joel, with those fables and those kind of lessons. They taught you everything you needed to be successful by about 4th grade, if you just paid attention.
Sure. Yep. For sure. For sure. And the thing about it, way back, when you looked at this, your life depended on this.
True.
It just did.
Yeah, that's right.
If you go way time, your life depended on being slow, smooth, accurate, and doing things right. Because if you didn't, you were going to die.
That's right.
So
good point.
We don't have that kind of pressure on us anymore. So we kind of disregard stuff and just kind of do whatever we feel is right, or what we think is right. And it's not good for our industry overall, for sure.
It's not. Hey, Joseph, I have to assume this isn't your first driving job.
No, and I struggle trying to get that hurry up and go mindset, because I've always been paid on percentage or by the mile.
Let me ask you something.
I was
based on your day now, the way you described it, we know it's safer. There's no doubt about that. We know it's more efficient. There's no doubt about that. Don't you feel like it's healthier for you as a human being?
Yes, it's less stress. At first, I was concerned because I was concerned about the number. I was concerned about would I be making less money than I was when I was being paid by the load. But then I realized that being paid by the hour and overtime after 40 hours, I hit 40 hours usually by like Wednesday afternoon or somewhere close to that. And then I realized that this is all overtime. And here lately we've been getting busier. We're actually picking up new customers, and
good.
It is less stress. And I like the way that we do it, because it's real simple. When I drive in the gate, I clock in. And when I drive out the gate, like this afternoon, I clock out.
That's awesome.
And the whole time, if I get tired, this has happened several times. If I get tired in the morning and I need to pull over and take a nap for 30 or 45 minutes, I just pull over and take a nap, and I don't have to sweat it. I just pull over and take a nap. And
let's talk about something, because one of the ways you could totally blow this idea, and we see when it's done right, all the advantages, but you could blow this too. And here's how. If your fleet paid you by the hour, but they were constantly looking at you and going, oh, look, it took you an hour and a half to do this, and it should only take an hour and 10 minutes. If they were doing that kind of stuff, all the benefits go right out the window. You can't put somebody on the clock and then constantly badger them that they're not getting enough done. That won't work either.
Yeah. Now we have had people that were milking the clock,
right?
And like we had one guy that had to let him go because he would do his post trip and then go home and then clock out 2 hours later.
Well, I've told
now
my
they're checking our hours of service compared to our timesheet, and if there's, like I said, like a 10% or 15% variance, they look into that, and they want to see what you're doing, and they compare the both hours of service versus.
And that's a tough line to manage when you're paying people by the hour. You want them to be efficient, but you can't badger them all the time. Now, I've told this story several times. My short stint as a union member didn't last long, and it didn't for the opposite reason. We were paid a flat rate, and on these, they were more local, regional kind of loads. And within the first 2 weeks, I got cornered by a couple other union members that told me, you can't do that run you did the other day in 3 hours. And I said, well, what do you mean I can't do it 3 hours? I did it, and I'll do it again today. And they said, no, you don't understand. You can't do that. And I said, I did understand. I'm like, no, I did everything I was supposed to do, and I got it done in 3 hours. They said, right, but that's a 5-hour run. And I still didn't understand what they were talking about. My mind doesn't work that way. So I'm arguing with it. Well, no, it's not. I did it in 3 hours, and I didn't speed. I drive really slow. And they were like, we get paid. That is a 5-hour run. Don't do it in any less time. And I thought, okay, I'm in the wrong place here.
Right. I just wanted to bring that up because
that's
the first job I've ever seen with this, the way it's structured, and I really enjoy it. But I just wanted to bring that up to you guys.
It sounds like they do it really well, so thank you for that. Let's go to Virginia. Dave, welcome to the program.
Hi, Kevin. Thanks for taking my call. I have a question about my Volvo. I've been driving it since I picked it up in October of last year, for about a year now. It's a 2017 760, and it has a D13 engine. I'm an owner-operator. When I picked it up, there were some things that were wrong with it. I took it out for a week and said that it wasn't performing well or whatever, and they did a diagnostic test on it. So, the company is really cool. They covered it bumper to bumper for like 30 days. So I wanted to make sure that, I covered all my bases and tried to get everything fixed that I saw was wrong. It had a really bad performance issue, and I had to bring it back within like 3 or 4 days. I told them about it, and they did an overhead on it, and they fixed a couple other things. And, after that, it was fine. Didn't have that same problem. But it had 425,000 miles on it, and I wanted to bring it to Pittsburgh Power to, make sure that I was getting the best performance that I could get out of the truck. And they did it seriously needed a DEF exhaust cleaning, and they did the engine cleaning too. So, but they told me when they ran the diagnostic test about in January of this year, they said that I had a leak in my air leak in my transmission, and that didn't come up a couple months before that when I got everything, when they did their diagnostic test. So I didn't get it fixed. They really didn't. Seeing that it's a Volvo, they really weren't too concerned about working on the Volvo. So, you know, they don't, I guess they just don't like Volvos. But anyway, they did, you know, they did what I asked them to do, and it was fine. And I knew about that, that air leak. But ever since then, I noticed that even if I'm empty, going up hills, I mean, I'm dogging it. It's like I'm losing performance, I'm losing power. And before that air leak was diagnosed, I didn't have that problem. So I'm wondering, does Volvo derate the engine?
No.
It doesn't, because of that air leak in the transmission.
No.
It won't derate it. It won't.
Now,
okay.
when they say air leak in the transmission, do they mean it was physically internal or it was on the transmission?
They didn't care to look at it any further, so I knew about it since January, but I never did anything about it because, well, it's used truck, and I've been buying things, I've been replacing things, you know, and I'm building my, you know, my account up, and I'm going to be getting tires here in another month or so, just 4. But I'm trying to put away, because I don't know how much it's going to cost me to actually, I think I have to bring it to a dealership, you know, because I think it's
No, you don't. There's some Volvo specific shops out there that are very, very good, depending on where you're located. There is a guy in the Atlanta area, Will Gibley, who is an absolute master on the, he rebuilds them himself, and he is excellent with the iShift. I mean, very, very good, and it's about half of what a dealer's gonna charge you. And the guy is just, he blows my mind, some of the shit he does. He's very good. There are a couple of very good shops, and one in North Carolina, one in Wisconsin. Both of those
I
guys
live in
are
Wisconsin.
just, yep. So
I live in Wisconsin, so yeah, we're in Wisconsin.
Where at?
Shoot.
You there?
Yeah, I guess I'm going through a bad area. I don't know, but I'm on an interstate in Virginia. I don't see why I would be losing signal.
It could be me too. I don't know. But if you're in Wisconsin, Brisk Truck Repair, he is very, very good too, and that's all they do are Volvos. They specialize in Volvo, and so if you are on the Volvo Masters Facebook page at all, you can get a hold of them through there. If you're not, you should be, because you'll learn all kinds of stuff on the Volvo Masters Facebook page. And that's probably, he would probably end up being your, Patrick Philman is his name, Brisk Truck Repair. I want to say it's Madison, but I always get the city wrong that he's in, but I think it's Madison. The guy is excellent. He has a small fleet himself of Volvos, and he's worked on them for years.
Yeah, we just lost that line. It was him. All right, Joel, I just looked at the clock. It's after 11. Are you planning on submitting for overtime pay today?
Of course. Of course.
I just got to check. All right, before we go, though, I know we're running late, but we're in overtime now. I got a couple things I got to talk about. One, we have a... were you listening to the... did you listen to Wednesday's show this week?
I did not.
You should. You know, I don't recommend a lot of supplements. I'm kind of anti-supplement. You know, if we need them and targeted and it's done right, kind of like, you know, additives, okay, but we just shouldn't be throwing a bunch of supplements down our throat every day with no real plan or reason why. But one I'm going to add, and you don't have to add much, but it's pretty critical, copper. I'm learning more and more about copper. Really, really good for our heart.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I definitely look into that.
yeah, so we carry a line of copper and silver as supplements. The silver is pretty incredible for all kinds of things. We
Mhm.
have like topical healing silver you put on cuts, heals them so fast, it's incredible. We have sprays you can use that are kind of really good in cold and flu season. You spray it in your mouth, blocks a lot of viruses
Mhm.
and colds. The copper is really good for your heart. I've got to go do some more research because the doctor that I had on informed me that this company that we get our copper and silver from is bringing out a gold product. I have never
Huh.
heard of it. So
Interesting.
yeah, so I've got to go do some research on that. By the way, the people who liked Robert Scott Bell, that was the guy that was on with me on Wednesday. He's already rebooked. He's coming back again. So that'll be a great show. So all of Sovereign Silver and Sovereign Copper, every product we have is 20% off in the store. So go grab those. And then I had a couple issues I wanted to talk about. Um,
Mhm.
I just read this. I have a really hard time with this. I'm going to get political now, but we're in overtime, so I'm allowed.
Mhm.
Listen to this. A federal judge on Friday ordered Virginia to halt its removal
Yeah.
of non-citizens from state voter rolls. Why?
So
They're
here's
non-citizens.
what
They're not
makes us
allowed to
even
vote.
more. Here's here's what makes this even more interesting. The argument they're saying is they think it's just clerical errors, and we're going to be kicking citizens off that just marked the box wrong. The problem with this is that it was a Democratic governor several years ago that signed this into law, and there's like 4 or 5 levels of protection that filled that it's possibly a mistake, somebody checked the wrong box, and they're just now saying that you can't do it now that a Republican is wanting to clear these people off the roll. It's bullshit. Complete, total bullshit.
Do you know why this is happening in some states? And why it's really rampant we now have states that when you get a driver's license, which you don't have to be a citizen to get a driver's license, but when you get
Right.
a driver's license, we have states that automatically enroll you to.
Yeah.
That's just
Yep.
wrong. That should not
It
happen.
is.
You should have to go
Yep.
physically say, I want to register to vote. Nobody should be signed up automatically.
What is sad is that these people that come up with this bullshit really think we're all this stupid.
I know.
Really? You really think we're all this stupid? At some point, everybody's going to get pissed off enough that, it's going to be good. And it's bullshit like this that just drives me insane when they do something this just stupid. It's just dumb.
So
And
I don't even.
I'm with you on this one.
And I don't even consider it stupid. I used to consider it incompetence. Now I see it as a pattern. They want these voters on those rolls. They do.
Oh, there is no doubt.
Yeah.
There is no doubt.
Yeah.
Absolutely no doubt. Yep. They wouldn't keep doing it over and over and over. Yeah.
Exactly. But I am just shocked that we actually have a judge that says, no, you can't take them off the rolls when they're non-citizens. We're not going to let you.
Yeah, that is absolutely shocking. And it was a Democratic governor that came up with this program. It's been in place for years, never been challenged before. And they have taken voters off the roll, and there's several layers of protection to make sure it just wasn't somebody accidentally checked the wrong box. When you dig into this, you're going to see all the safeguards in place,
right?
And they still won't. It's nonsense.
Well, and there's another final safeguard. They give all these people the opportunity to prove that they are a citizen.
Yes. Yes.
It's not like they just say, nope, we already know it. You're done. They say you have 14 days to prove to us that you're a citizen. If you're a citizen, that's not hard to do.
Yep.
So it
for
is
sure.
awful. Holy cow.
Just mind blowing.
Do you know who Kevin O'Leary is?
I've heard the name several times.
Shark Tank, the show Shark Tank.
Yep.
So Shark Tank it's 5 billionaires, and they all bid on these companies. So I used to watch it constantly. After 10 seasons, it gets kind of repetitive. But I learned a lot of stuff about business that I didn't know watching that show. You know, retail businesses with margins and lots of things I was just never exposed to. It's interesting because when I first started watching it, it was over a decade ago. Over time, my favorite shark was Mark Cuban. What the hell happened to that guy? Has gone off the
He bumped his head.
rails.
I think he fell down and bumped his
My
head.
God. He did not become a billionaire believing the things he believes today. He just didn't.
Nope, for sure.
And now all of a sudden, when he is a billionaire, he comes off the rails with these goofy ideas. He was my favorite shark for years. Kevin O'Leary is now my favorite shark. He calls himself Mr. Wonderful,
Yeah.
and he's just really level-headed and down to earth. Listen to what he said about Elon Musk. Listen to this paragraph. It's pretty. He says Elon Musk is no noise, only signal. He would be a profound force if set free to find inefficiencies in government, and I would like to see that happen. We don't know how much Elon will be engaged, but you can't deny what he's already achieved. I say release the hounds. Trump has talked about putting him strictly in charge of government inefficiencies. Wouldn't that be interesting to watch?
Yeah, I agree. That would be a hell of a thing to watch. The only thing that I'm kind of concerned about is that the deep state is so entrenched.
Yep.
That I mean, this is going to be a battle because they're not going to want to. I mean, they're essentially royalty. They're not going to want to give this up.
No way.
You know what I mean?
Right.
They're just not going to want to. So,
Right.
so this will be very interesting. And you know, I know everybody talks about, oh, you know, this could lead to violence and this and that. You know what? That's everybody talks. This is a democracy, and we don't. Democracies aren't always peaceful. And I'm not advocating for everybody to go out and be violent, but you know, when this stuff happens, it can build to a point where stuff happens, and you know that is not uncommon in a democracy at all.
Have we forgotten how we became a country?
Exactly. You're damn right we have. We're so removed from the Second World War, where a lot of death, a lot of violence, that we're kind of immune to it. You know, we see it on TV. It doesn't, you know, we just, it just doesn't hit us the same as what it used to. And you're exactly right. Look at how damn bloody the Revolutionary War and the Civil War especially was.
We picked up guns and we told the Brits to go back across the pond. We were going to run our own country. And we did that with weapons
over
and
the price of tea.
Over the price of attacks on tea. You're right. Right. We picked up weapons and we said we're going to run our own country the way we started.
Yeah. Could you imagine taking up arms over the price of tea today? could you imagine? Jesus. Yeah, and you know, it just, oh my gosh, yeah. And you know, the whole thing with the slavery. Look at how absolutely gruesome and bloody that was, and we just have no sense of that today as what we went through as a nation, you know, for our freedom. Even World War II, we really had no sense of it. And you know, when you look at it, Vietnam was really the last conflict where we had, you know, super heavy casualties.
Right.
And I'm not dismissing casualties by any stretch of the imagination, but we are so damn good as war fighters and warriors these days that compared to like what the Russians do. And I think the Russians are pretty much on par what we done in the 1940s and 50s.
Yeah.
Look at all the people that they're losing and over what they believe, and whether you think they're right or wrong, this is what they believe and this is what they're doing, and you know, they're willing to fight for it, and it's just,
you know, and we can
it's
also
amazing
apply
that we think that democracies are these
peaceful,
you know, just pie in the sky ideals that never result in violence. But by our very nature, human nature, we're pretty violent beings. We just are.
And
and
the argument about the Second Amendment, when I see somebody post, well, why do you need an AR-15 and a 30-round clip to hunt deer? I don't. And that's not what I hunt deer with. I would if I needed to, but that's not ideal. But that's not what the Second Amendment was about. Oh boy. I got to
Ready to connect.
reconnect.
Click connect to show now. You are connected as the host. Welcome, host. You are now in the host room and can manage your callers from the Call-in Studio web interface. Audio recording is on.
All right, I'm back. The government heard me talking about the Second Amendment and they cut me off. Joel, are you there? Oh, is anybody hearing me? Angie, are you hearing me? Oh, there's Joel. Joel just got terminated. Holy cow. We seem to have lost everybody on that. All right, you can hear me. Joel is gone. We might have lost him. And I don't see a call coming back in. Oh, no, there he is. Hold on. Let me grab him. Hey, Joel, are you there?
hello.
Okay.
Yeah, I lost you for a second. Sorry about that.
I lost my call to the phone connection. I had to reconnect. So I said I was starting to talk about the Second Amendment, and the government's listening. So they're trying to silence us.
There you go.
When the Second Amendment was written, founders had not just come back from a hunting trip. They had just finished a revolutionary war from what they considered a tyrannical government. And the idea, the absolute sole idea of the Second Amendment has nothing to do with anything other than citizens being armed to protect against a tyrannical government.
Yes. 100%. That's what it's there for. And you can bet your ass that when the Chinese are sitting in there war gaming and running war models on stuff, and they're thinking about invading the American homeland, and they come up against the idea that every single American virtually is armed with a whole lot of ammunition, their war game stops.
It does.
It just stops.
It does.
It does. It absolutely does. And to pretend that that's not a huge deterrent is fantasy. That deters everybody.
You know what really made me crazy about this topic? I hate even talking about Ukraine, but when the whole thing started in Ukraine in the very beginning, and we had lots of Democratic. Here we go again. I just got dumped off. Let me reconnect.
Ready to connect. Click connect to show now. You are connected as the host. Welcome, host. You are now in the host room and can manage your callers from the Call-in Studio web interface. Audio recording is on.
Joel, I swear they are trying to silence me.
I'm thinking so.
So where was I?
Change the topic, right?
In the beginning of Ukraine, we had Democratic senators and Congress people who fight against gun control, fight for more gun control, and they talk about wanting to take away our AR-15s and our assault rifles over and over and over. Those very same people were bragging about how if they could get the AR-15s over to the Ukrainians, they'd be able to protect themselves. That's the point.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. If every one of them Ukrainians were armed before this broke out with a couple of stockpiles of ammunition, none of this would be happening right now.
That's exactly right. Sheesh.
It's amazing, isn't it?
All
Hey,
right,
I've got a question for you.
Sure.
And I don't understand the dynamic at work here. So you know that I've got arthritis issues with my hips, and we had talked about eating more fermented foods because my heart surgery had killed off all my gut biome to get my carnivore working again. Well, the pain and the stiffness and everything had gotten to such a point where I was thinking I'm going to have surgery on this before I can get my digestive system straightened out. I really don't want them cutting me up.
Right.
And so I keep reading about, braces and pressure, and I'm thinking, okay, how can you brace a hip? So I ordered a couple of braces off of Amazon, and I call them guy garters because that's about what they look like.
Yeah,
There's
right.
this belt that goes around your stomach and this thing that goes down your hip, and then there's this big wrap that goes around your upper thigh. And I put them on and tighten them up to the degree that I could, and it did seem to help. This pressure helped. So I didn't like them because I had all this stuff up around my stomach and it was just big and bulky. And so I rolled that upper thing down and I wrapped it super tight around my upper thigh, and pain almost instantly went away. Stiffness just gone. I mean, I can tell I got some grinding going, but I can walk normal. And a huge, huge difference by applying pressure. What is happening when I apply pressure that makes the pain go away and makes it feel better?
My guess is because it was instant. Had you put on some sort of a brace and then things got better over time, my guess then would be that the brace is putting the muscles and the joints in alignment and allowing the muscles to strengthen over time, and it will get better. Kind of like chiropractic adjustments. You know, over time they get the alignment on the spine, then the muscles are able to heal. But if it's instant or even close to it, then my guess is somewhere along the line you are pressing on a nerve that's blocking the pain signal. There is a device on them. I just had this call yesterday or Wednesday. People with sciatica, their back's out of alignment and their hips are out of alignment. It causes that pain to go down their leg. There's a device that you put on your calf, and it puts pressure on
Yeah,
a pressure point on the back of your calf, and it just blocks the pain.
I've seen that, and it definitely is. The tighter I can wrap it,
then
the more reduction in pain I get. And I don't think I can wrap it tight enough to cut the circulation off, because I mean, I've really got it tight today, and I'm like, this is the greatest thing ever. I feel like I could go out and play basketball.
No,
you know what I mean? That's crazy, because I've been dealing with this for a long time.
You absolutely found a nerve, and the more pressure you put on it, the better you'll block that signal. That's what's going on. Now, there's a couple things you should know here. It's possible over a long period this could make it worse.
Well, that's what I was going to ask, because it might make it
reasons.
just worse. So
Two
that's
reasons.
what I wanted to know.
You're blocking the pain, so you now all of a sudden we feel like we're better, and we're not. You might be doing more damage and not know it because you can't feel the pain. Pain is our warning sign that something's going wrong. So it's nice to get the relief. The other thing, it could be putting your joint or muscle in a position that's going to weaken it or create more inflammation. So you just want to be careful. I get it. The relief feels good, but what we need to do while you're doing that is try to solve the root cause. Are you drinking any bone broth?
Yeah, I've been going super hard on the bone broth, glucosamine, chondroitin,
collagen,
the orange stuff. What is the shit? I can't say the name of it.
Metamucil.
Anyway, no,
I thought you might be doing
in the capsules for your joints.
Turmeric. Turmeric.
Yeah, I've been doing that, and it just, you know, I know before I've had this joint pain in the past, and when I got hardcore carnivore and it was working, it really helped to control. Of course, I lost a lot of weight too, and I'm heavier now than I've been in a long time, and I hate that, but nothing is working yet to drop it, so I get on the fermented stuff. So I'm hoping I get on the fermented foods, you know, drop 15, 20 pounds, and I'm going to keep these wrapped up.
Have you tried any infrared therapy on it?
Actually, my better half is very big into infrared, and she just bought me these infrared sleeves that I'm going to start using.
Perfect. I was going to say, we have an infrared heating pad in our store, like a weighted heating pad, and it'll drape right over things.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'll check that out. She'll probably snag one of those because she's all into the weighted heating pads too. So if you get a combination of both.
Yeah, it's a weighted heating pad, but it's not just an electrical coil that heats up, it's infrared. You know, the interesting thing about these, and this has always confused me. I love to cook, and everybody expects that I'm going to have like this big gas range in my kitchen because I love to cook. And
Mm-hmm.
when they see a flat cooktop, they're like, "You cook on electric?" No, I cook on induction. Induction,
Gotcha.
far superior to gas. Instant heat, instant off, because the
Sure.
the
Yep.
burner doesn't get hot. This has always confused me. The burner does not get hot. The pan gets hot.
Right.
The induction is a wavelength that when it comes in contact with metal, it heats up the metal directly, not from a hot coil doing it. And it's fast, it's powerful. The infrared is the same way. Infrared does not heat up the air. If you hang this electric heating pad and turn it on high and it's just hanging in the air, it won't get warm. Nothing happens.
Gotcha.
When you put it on your body, it starts to warm you up from the inside out. Have you ever walked outside on a really cold day, but the sun feels really hot?
Yep.
That's infrared.
Same
The air is
thing. Yep.
cold, but the infrared signal coming from the sun heats up your body directly. It doesn't heat up the air around you, it heats up you.
Right.
And that's what these infrared, and they're really, really effective. So yeah, that will give you some relief.
All right. Yeah, I definitely will do that, because I mean, shit was getting really bad there for a while, and then
it's awful.
just wrapping these, I was like, oh my god, this is the greatest
Yeah.
thing ever.
No,
So
if that's giving you relief, I would keep doing that.
Yeah, I was having a problem driving all day
I'll
because I was
bet.
just getting so sore and swollen up and achy. And man, when I wrap these good and tight, I'm like all day, and it's amazing how much physically and mentally that constant pain wears you down. And I just I'm one of these guys that just keep putting it out of your mind. It's not there. It's
I
not there.
know.
It's not there. Even though you feel it, you're like, bullshit. This isn't going to stop me. And my difference in my mental attitude, and I was getting so bitchy and short with people,
and you can't
because
think.
I was just
you
oh my gosh, I'm telling you.
The things that you work on require deep thought in a linear fashion. You've got to think about this leads to this, then, but when you're in pain, you get to about that second this leads to, and you just can't focus anymore.
Right. No, you're 100% right. So the tight wraps, I'm thankful for. I mean, it works good, but I'll get the infrared, and I got to get on this fermented stuff and get that going, and try and get this carnivore kick back in, and get rid of some of this damn weight to take some pressure off those joints.
I am working on something else. Again, one of my guests that I had on 2 weeks ago, I'm not a big believer in detoxing. I know that's like the key, we hear it everywhere. Oh, you got to do this detox, you got to do that detox. Most of them are bullshit. Most people don't know what the hell they're doing.
Right.
I've seen detoxes cause just as many problems as they solve. So I'm always a little hesitant. But I had a guest on, and she told me about a specific detox, a liver detox. And the more I went and looked at it, the more I really believe this is a tool I might be missing. I'm going to do one myself. But the more I read about this, the more I think all of us should probably be doing some specific liver detoxes, maybe even as much as once or twice a month. We live in a very, very toxic world right now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. So
no doubt about that. One other quick thing.
Yeah.
I've got some stuff going on with Michelin that's very, very interesting. I'm not at liberty to throw any details out, but it's going to be some pre-production stuff I'm going to be testing. I will tell you that my experience with Michelin in the past was that they were extremely difficult to work with as a company. I don't know what has changed, but they have been excellent. Is that something that you might want to reconnect with them folks there and get involved with this?
I would. Now, I'll tell you my history. Michelin was one of my favorite partners. They're only difficult just because they're so big. There was nothing about the culture. I thought their culture was excellent. You've been through the same thing. They invite you in. They opened up their test tracks to me, their engineers. My only struggle, and it's a struggle all the time for me, you understand sales. Making the sale
Mhm.
is just one part of it. Most
Mhm.
salespeople spend the bulk of their time managing relationships. After the sale has been made, you just can't go sell a company like this and then walk away. There's
Right.
and I just don't have time. I can do the
No,
sales
I
part,
and
but I can't be that guy that, has that regular schedule. Oh, I got to call 10 customers today and talk to. I just don't do that. Once it's done, it's done. I move on. I go back to what I'm doing. And the problem with that at a company like Michelin is that works for
right.
a little while
You
until they
gotta
start moving people around. And all of a sudden, you've got somebody new in the department and they
Yep.
don't understand your program. I don't have time to go back to South Carolina and meet with them again. So that's the
Right.
only reason that partnership kind of ended, was just that they moved the entire department that I dealt with out and replaced everybody. And I just didn't have a relationship anymore. But I loved working with them.
So let me see what I can do to set something up, and I will let you know. And then I'm trying to develop a system inside of Alpha Drivers to manage exactly what you're talking about, because that is always the stumbling block. I don't have time to do it. You don't have
Right.
time to do it, but it needs to be done. It's
I
very
know.
important. So I'll see. We'll see what we can do. But I will talk to them, because I think you're going to
Sounds
be
good.
blown away by some of this stuff that's upcoming. I think at one point we kind of thought, well, you know what, we're kind of at the pinnacle of tire technology, and what could we possibly do new? And I think some of the stuff is pretty damn mind blowing
Oh, I'll
that they've
bet.
got
Yeah,
coming down the
I don't
pike.
feel like we're at that point at all. I'm looking forward to stuff they're coming. That's the other thing about Michelin. They are a very innovative company.
Yep, yep, for sure.
Good
So
stuff.
let me see what I can put together on that. I'll let you know next Friday. I've had a couple meetings with them, and they're actually rushing me some tires to put on the purple truck, because the steer tires, those 365/70 XEAs that I'm running, we just turned 223,000 miles. By the time they get back, they'll have 230,000 on the steers. And the only reason I'm pulling them is early on, when Jim done the alignment, we forgot to set the steer stops because they're wider, and the
Oh,
tires made contact with the damn sway bars, and it chewed the inside ribs up.
yep.
So even with the inside ribs screwed up, they still went 230,000 miles. These tires
Wow.
probably would have went 300,000 miles
Wow.
with,
Yeah.
no problem.
Very cool.
So there's some cool stuff in the works,
Good.
and I'll keep you up to date on it when I'm on next week. I'll remind you of what's happening, and
Perfect.
I'll send you some information when I have it.
All right. Sounds good. All right,
Awesome.
Joel.
Well, good
Thanks
show
as
today.
always. Yeah, it was a great show today. Thank you as always, and we'll do it again next week. All right, everybody. We'll see you on Monday. Have a great weekend. Be safe. Be profitable. Be fit.